and gentlemen, let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Adam, your night with Beards and Briscoe, if you won the prize that the three of you just get to hang out and do what?
Wow.
Yeah, so many possibilities. So much.
How about we? Can't somebody else win this prize? Why do I have to win this prize?
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm on a Monday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Todd Lebo, and Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. We've got you for the next 4 hours. We'll talk some golf today. We'll talk some Major League Baseball. We'll get into some NFL. We'll talk some soccer. We'll discuss states and capitals and things like that throughout the show. Capital letters, state capitals, capitals a lot of things. We'll talk some counties, some public financing. It'll be an eclectic show today over the next 4 hours. We will talk with Myron Metcalf coming up at noon, get his thoughts on what's going on in the NBA. How many games do we have to just simply pass along before we get the Heat and Nuggets NBA Finals? Maybe a couple of more games. Maybe there will be a sweep. Maybe the Celtics will go away quietly into the dark night. Will the Lakers do the same thing? We'll find out tonight if the Nuggets will sweep the Lakers or if that thing will be a 5-game series. I don't know, maybe 6 if the Lakers can, go crazy and win a couple of games. Doubtful. We'll talk to them about that and also what's going on in college basketball with some transfer portal stuff that's out there. Hunter Dickinson, what he does for KU. Caleb Love is available. Local schools, K-State, what they look like as well. And a little primer on the NBA draft. We talked with Kyle Mann from The Ringer last week, and just about, Victor Wembanyama. Is he the real deal? Is it a little bit of, we see some highlights of him, but is he as good as advertised, or is he kind of a novelty that we like to see with different highlight reels? So we'll talk with Myron Metcalf about those things. And then Kylie McDaniel from ESPN. He covers the prospects, the Major League Baseball draft, the minor leagues, things like that. We will talk with Kylie McDaniel about the piece that he wrote at ESPN, the best players at every age from age 16 to 25. So we went through top 10 players that are 16 years old. A lot of them in, the Dominican and Venezuela, a couple of high school kids, but 16 years old all the way until 25. And we'll talk to him about the plethora of Royals that made the list of all of those different players.
You got a new definition of plethora, apparently?
My definition of plethora is one. Out of all those players from age 16 to 25, and obviously 16, 17, 18 aren't going to be on the Royals, but even if you go 20 to 25 and all those different players that are ranked there, the Royals have one that shows up, and that is Bobby Witt. And it's not just the best player from, ages 16, 17, 18, all the way to 25. He goes top 10. The Royals have one, so that's good. So we'll talk about that. At least the minor leagues are looking bright, while the major leagues are now 20 games under 500 and 5 games out of 4th place in the American League Central. But they don't have nearly as bad a record as the A's. Oh, wait. They do. And luckily, they beat the A's to it. No, they didn't. No. Other than that, though, Mrs. Lincoln,
hey, they don't have to.
Has been great.
Don't have to face the A's anymore this year, though.
That is true. Schedule. You don't want to run into that juggernaut, that buzzsaw right there. But yes, the season has been just fine other than all of the negative stuff. So we'll talk with Mick Schaefer at 1 o'clock, learn funniest best, all of that still to come here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. It's The Zone presented by Google Fiber. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us. 913-912-4810, the text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation today. We'll get to those throughout the show periodically. 913-912-4810. Text says, Kylie McDaniel's list, top 10 from age 16 to 25, said you could call that the Leonardo DiCaprio prospect list. That's right, because then it ends at 20. Right. At 25, it's sort of like at that point you move on. All right, so we'll get into the PGA Championship. Chiefs voluntary workouts starting today with OTAs over the next few days, and then they'll have another voluntary workout from May 30th to June 1st, and then June 6th to 9th, and then the mandatory minicamp and workout June 13th to 15th and all of that stuff. But today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, the Chiefs will be out there at the practice facility. They'll talk on Wednesday after the final day of this voluntary workout session. So we'll talk some Chiefs throughout the show. And then I want to get into the conversation around Jordan Lyles, what positives in an evaluation season that we've talked about a lot that might be there. Was there a positive yesterday in the game? I actually think so. And then Vinny Pasquantino weighing in on Sirius XM about his if there's a talks of a contract and his interest in a contract. We'll get to that. Let's start with the PGA. That was the story yesterday and really of the weekend because the NBA left a lot to be desired in any storylines, both of those games being 3-0. So people were wondering, like, boy, the NBA Finals, the ratings are going to be terrible if it's Heat and Nuggets. Okay, well, how are the conference finals ratings doing the rest of the way? Because they aren't going to be great. But the story was the PGA Championship and Scheffler, his rough start to his round on Saturday, but then turning it around, not doing enough. Victor Hovland, what he was going to be able to do yesterday, and Brooks Koepka, could he put all of the ghosts and the demons of what was going on between the ears and in his head the last 2 years behind him to then win, to keep control in the final round and actually win. He was unable to do that, finishing second at the Masters earlier this year, and came out and was incredibly aggressive to start the round. And he sort of controlled that. From time to time, Victor Hovland got close. Scheffler made it close a little bit. Then he bogeyed. But 16th is when everything just changed with the birdie by Brooks Koepka and the double bogey by Hovland hitting the fairway bunker. And then after that, it was pretty much over. And it was a coronation the last couple of holes for Brooks Koepka and the LIV Tour and what the storylines were from yesterday's PGA. But even as Brooks Koepka made his sort of comeback from knee injury and made his comeback from being somebody who said that, he couldn't get out of his own head, the story ended up being Michael Block. Like, he didn't even win. It felt a little bit Tin Cup-ish with Kevin Costner, that in the major championship or whatever it was at the end of the movie, where he doesn't win and he keeps hitting the ball into the water, and then finally he hits the ball, the last one he has. If he doesn't hit that ball, if he loses it, he's disqualified, all of that, and he buries it from the fairway, and everybody's like, he's the story. It was great. Everybody's cheering him on and patting him on the back, even though he lost the championship. That wasn't what happened with Michael Block, but he was the story. He finished 15th. I don't know the last time in a major, Todd, that the story was the person that finished 15th. Unless it was,
someone was supposed to finish first and fell apart.
Yeah, unless it was like the leader. And it had to be somebody good. It couldn't
Check
be
and see where Greg Norman finished in the 96 Masters. I don't think he made it all the way to 15th on the collapse, but something like that.
It couldn't have been like a 72-hole lead or
There's
whatever it was.
There's never a feel-good finish 15th story.
Yeah, so I guess it wouldn't have been a 72-hole lead because that would be a
the
champion.
tournament's over.
Brooks Koepka winning by leading 72 holes. But if it was a leader going into the fourth round and all of a sudden, and it's somebody who's a star and they fall apart and finish 15th, it can't be a random person that's like, well, this guy, let's see what he does, and then melts down. And you're like, well, that was expected. But to finish 15th and to never lead, it was amazing. And I don't know that there's another sport that can bring a story like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're really, it's a solo sport, right? You're just playing against the course. And the fun part is, we've seen every once in a while, that there'll be a low amateur at Augusta or something, or plenty of amateurs are playing in the U.S. Open. They're qualifying right now. We were out at the ALS golf tournament last Monday, and one of George Brett and Tom Watson's friends, he had gone somewhere to qualify because you have to go through all that stuff. And those guys, I mean, if one of them climbs up the board, they don't, but every once in a while they do, but they don't hit a hole in one and all that stuff. And someone who has dedicated his life to golf, he's a PGA professional, right? They're PGA professionals all over the place, but they're just not on tour. They work at golf courses and they're teaching pros and they do all that, and they have to qualify to get into this because it's their championship. It's the PGA Championship, and to have one of them come up and get on the leaderboard and make an ace. You know, after the round, he'd said he'd never made an ace in a tournament. It's hard to do, right? And then on that stage when he really needed it because he was falling apart, he was a really cool story. He needed to get back up there to where he can finish top 15 and be automatically in next year and all that stuff. It's a really neat story, and it seems like a really nice guy. And those are the kind of stories because they needed something because there was no other story. And they weren't going to glorify the LIV golfer coming in and winning the PGA Championship.
No, yesterday's last round wasn't going to be about the PGA v Live and some of the Live golfers and finishing, 5 of them finishing in the top 20, a couple of them in the top 10, Koepka winning it. The storyline wasn't going to be the PGA versus the Live. They weren't going to let that happen. And at 16, when ultimately that thing was over, when it was the 3-shot swing, I believe at that point, what was going on with Michael Block was the up and down to save par on 18. So at least there was some drama, some story that was great for the country to sort of wrap their arms around. And the hole-in-one happens, and then the up and down par save on 18, which allowed him to finish 15th. And like you said, get the automatic invitation to Valhalla next year for the PGA Championship. Tex said Michael Block played college golf at the University of Missouri St. Louis. He played at UMSL.
Yeah.
I knew he was from St. Louis, but I didn't know he played at UMSL. But that's pretty awesome. And he gets, he made, $300,000?
Yeah, about that.
Number 15 was $309,000, which isn't bad. And then after the round is over, because he was such a great storyline, he gets the executive, invite to the Colonial next week. So now he's heading to Fort Worth. I guess his daughter goes to TCU, so that's going to be awesome. So he'll be down there. As soon as he gets the call from the tournament director of the Colonial, the Charles Schwab, coming up this weekend, his wife just starts crying. Like, his wife's sitting there and just starts crying, and he's like, well, you got to ask my boss if I can go and play next week. And he's like, don't worry, my boss is here. He's got tequila in his hand. His boss said, yeah, you can have the week off. It's all good. You can take next week off too. Because the guy gives golf lessons for $150 an hour.
Yeah.
At a public course. And this guy finished top 15, is going to be playing in the PGA Championship next year. Like, you don't have a guy who plays like semi-pro basketball randomly and is also a coach part-time with like a high school, team, and then goes through a tryout and all of a sudden is playing in the Eastern or Western Conference Finals. Like, is out there playing big minutes. And this guy a week ago, 2 weeks ago, was, coaching a high school basketball team. And now here he is dropping 15 points in the NBA Finals.
What's the name of
You don't see that.
Disney made the movie The Rookie, that pitcher for Tampa. That's about as close as you can get. He made the major leagues.
Yeah, he made the major leagues.
After being away and
but he had already been
right.
Hadn't he already been in the major leagues and then he missed time? But either way, that's as kind of close as it gets when it's just like, oh, let me go have a tryout, and all of a sudden he's throwing 100 miles an hour, and he gets a chance to come out in the bullpen and play a little bit for the Rays. But I don't remember seeing anything like this in tennis. And that's really, and you're playing opponents, because you're playing opponents, and if you lose, in the early rounds, it's like, well, that was cool, he qualified and he may have won a match, but then does it matter after that because everybody has moved on and is watching? This was, you get to play all 4 days once you made the cut, and then how you played, and being with Rory
he was playing
on the final round is. And their sort of relationship back and forth was awesome.
Yeah, it was a neat deal. I mean, the event itself was fine. You always look for drama at the end, and that's what you want in all sports. And we haven't had a lot of drama. You mentioned the NBA, Eastern and Western Conference Finals. These games haven't even really been close. There hasn't been like a last-second shot in a bit, right? In that, and the golf, once Hovland stuck the ball in the front of the bunker, it was over, and you're just rooting for Koepka to swing and miss or something, and he didn't
just
play
for
great
drama.
down the. He had a good drive on 18, but his drive on 17 wasn't great. And, that's what we want in sports, and we talk about ratings and all that. That's what draws ratings. I mean, the NBA Finals will have just fine ratings if the games are good, but if there's two teams that people aren't as excited about and the games stink like last night. Hard pressed to watch that game last night till the end. I turned it on when it was over to watch Chuck and Shaq, but I couldn't watch hardly any of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It was just after the first quarter, I was done with it.
Yeah, but it's on NBA TV right now. It's in the first quarter.
It's about the time it went away. Right here.
I feel like actually this isn't even Game 3 because this is in Boston.
It's some other game.
So this is I don't know, but I bet the Heat win this one.
Probably
no
do.
matter which game this is in the series.
But that's how you build golf ratings. Golf ratings are big stars and drama down the stretch. That's why Tiger always moved the needle. Whether he was in there, they would show Tiger. People get mad. He's 8 shots back. They're showing. Well, people like him.
Yeah.
And he still today barely plays, and he ends up winning their prize they give out to the most recognizable golfer, does the best for the game at the end of the year, because he's Tiger Woods. And I think Brooks Koepka is someone people know and they like a little bit or dislike him now because he went to the LIV. So it would have been some better drama if, like, Scheffler had been up there and they'd been in the same group. He posted a score, but you needed that kind of PGA versus Live going down, and Hovland just didn't deliver.
Scheffler lost the championship in his first 5 holes on Saturday when he was +4.
Yeah.
If it's one that people always make fun of me because if you take this away, it's like, the Chiefs, yes, there were 5 yards per carry against them, okay, but if you take away the 70-yard run they gave up,
Greg Robinson talking
over the
right
course of the game, they really only had 2.8 yards per carry, so they weren't terrible against the run outside of one. If you take those 5 holes away from Scheffler, it's a different story, and it's probably
totally
Koepka Scheffler, and the fact that I haven't watched the series outside of the first one on Netflix of the Swing.
Full Swing.
Full Swing, yes, thank you. Full Swing, and the Koepka episode where he's talking about how he's going through these challenges mentally that he can't get out of his own head. He's lost total confidence. This guy's won 4 majors and has no confidence. And in that episode, he talks about, like, I can't compete with Scheffler. These guys like that. I mean, the guy's going to post 68 for 4 rounds. How am I supposed to go out there and beat a guy like that? And he says that out loud, right, in an episode that he knows the cameras are rolling. I do wonder if this is a guy that, finishes second at the Masters. If he's paired up with Scheffler in the final round, like, what happened? Do those voices come back when he's specifically the guy he named and said, I can't compete with that guy. He's going to post a 68 every single round. What am I supposed to do with that?
I think what you're going to see with these Live golfers is they're out there just getting paid. I mean, he got $3 million yesterday. He's made way more money than that on the Live Tour.
Got a guaranteed 100, right?
Right. So they're going to go out there and make their money, but now that they're definitely allowed to be playing in, like, the PGA Championship, that one means a lot to them. They all mean a lot. I mean, Augusta means a lot, obviously.
They'll be allowed to play in the Open
and all that. But coming to the place where they said you can't be, the PGA Tour, and winning there, these guys are going to be jacked up and ready to go for this. Now, the guys who finished whatever for the top 5 or whatever, those are the best golfers they have over there. If you take the 40th guy over there, he's not going to do very well in this. I mean, Phil is not – he's not doing well in the Live Tour, and he's not doing well at these. I mean, listen, he's 50 years old or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
I never understood, like, the conversation, like, after it was over, DeChambeau had the quote of, like, well, we're just proving that the Live Tour has really good golfers. Like, well, we know they do. Like, not top to bottom, but the PGA Tour doesn't have top to bottom great golfers. I mean, there's some weeks where you don't even need to watch the PGA Tour event, whatever's going on, because there aren't a lot of great golfers in that particular event. But the majors, are going to be good. PGA Championship, typically the best field, and when you've got the best of the Live Tour, like, they've got really good golfers.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody doubts that the Live Tour is like a bunch of also-rans that have never won a tournament and couldn't compete. There's some really good golfers there.
Maybe not a perfect analogy, but you go play in the NCAA tournament against a mid-major, there could be one stud on that team who will the next year end up being on another team because he'll transfer now.
Max Asmus is playing for Texas now.
Yeah.
And he might drop 15 points per game for Texas, and he was at Oral
John
Roberts
Morant,
last year.
Right? I mean, these guys. So
that's
the
a better
Live
one,
Tour is a little bit like that. They have some really good guys there who just aren't on the PGA Tour. Out here at Blue Hills this past weekend with the Korn Ferry Tour, I was talking to Dylan Wu, who's a PGA touring pro. He had not qualified for the PGA Championship, so he was here on the behalf of Advent Health. So I was just talking to him. I said, so, like, tell me what the difference is here. And some of it's mental with these guys just trying to get themselves on the tour. But there are many times that the top 30 people on the Korn Ferry Tour would beat a great deal of the field on the other one, just how you're playing at the time.
Right.
You just got to get the card and be there and have the opportunity. Case in point, Michael Brock doesn't have a PGA Tour card, and he just beat all but 14 people in a major.
Yeah.
It's just how it goes.
Over
So-
four, not just one round. He didn't just
4
finish
rounds.
15th in the first. He's sitting 15th after one round.
Yeah.
Good round for him. No, he had to
went
play
all
72
the way
holes.
through. So it can happen that way. And there are great golfers on the Live Tour. Some of the biggest, best names in golf. Brooks Koepka is one of them. DeChambeau is another one, right? So they've got some of those guys. And I do think they are going to be extremely focused when they have a chance to come play on this tour with a lot more people watching. It's going to be something to watch every single time there's a major and these guys are in there. It was, I know the tour was super happy that Koepka did not win in Augusta.
Right.
They got that one.
This might be the one that they.
This one they're like,
the the least they would have been okay with a live golfer winning the PGA Championship. This is the one. I mean, they've got some. Look, the majority of the live tour is a bunch of guys that you're like, I've never heard of that guy before.
Right. Well, the majority of the PGA Tour probably is too.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But they have some pretty good players on the live tour. I just appreciate after the round yesterday that Phil Mickelson said that he's going to continue to hold the PGA accountable. I'm glad he's finally willing to hold
He's
somebody
gonna do
accountable.
something, yeah.
So it's
all
about
the
time
things.
that Phil Mickelson went out of his way to hold some people accountable while he's making $100 million in the live tour with the Saudi money.
Out shooting horribly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Doesn't even have to go
he gets beat up over there too.
Yeah. There was I'm not a big fan of the live tour. I'm not a big fan of the players going over there and playing in that. But
I
I'm
mean,
also not a fan of Brooks Koepka. So
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of fun outside of Michael Block yesterday watching that final round because it was like. It was like climbing a mountain or climbing a huge hill, and you just keep sliding back. It's like, come on, Hovland, get there. Okay, Scheffler's, and then it's just 1/16 happened. I'm like,
Hey, you just
well,
want
then it doesn't
drama.
matter.
You want
Yeah,
drama, and we
that's
didn't
true.
get much drama yesterday.
true.
But that's just how sports are.
Yeah.
It's not always great. I was super excited a few weeks ago to watch that Formula One race in Miami. I was like, I'm going to watch that.
That's right.
And it was won by 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's not. There was great
In
things that
5
happened
seconds is
during the race, but
Yeah.
and the same thing can happen in a lot of events like that.
Yeah.
It can happen in football. Again, I mean, you can get your brains beaten in baseball and turn
In
it
basketball, it's 3-0 in both conference finals. Texas wasn't Matt Moore coaching high school football when the Chiefs called him up. That is true. He was coaching.
Now, he had played in the league.
He had played in the league a
Yeah.
long time. He had been a starter where Michael Block was,
He went out there and won games for a
Yeah.
team that won the Super Bowl, though.
I mean, had he ever made a cut before? I don't know.
it's a great story, though.
Yeah,
it's fun to see.
it's pretty cool.
We needed something out of that.
Absolutely. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and we don't have much coming out of the Eastern or Western Conference Finals except for post-game fun audio from TNT. We'll talk about that. What Jimmy Butler is Frank Clark.
Is he?
It's
Is that what it
weird.
is?
I kind of feel like Jimmy Butler is Frank Clark, and we'll explain coming up next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WH.
I will continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Todd Lebo, and Drake heading up until 2 o'clock. 913-912-4810 is the text line, 913-912-4810. We'll talk some Royals baseball coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, and we'll also talk some NBA and some baseball in the noon hour with Myron Medcalf from ESPN, and then also with Kylie McDaniel from ESPN. We'll talk to them all about those things. 913-912-4810. Trying to find the I was looking up the Frank Clark sacks just to see where he compares to others in the postseason, and
he's one of the top 5 or something. Is that?
Yeah, just and even since 2019. So I'm going to look at So I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at only playoffs. Playoffs on the playoffs.
Playoffs?
Just the playoffs. Because, as I said, Jimmy Butler and Frank Clark. So here we go. For Frank Clark, the ranking for him, as I pull up the stat head for Pro Football Focus, and it's not going to give me that, so it doesn't matter. No big deal. 913-912-4810. But here's the deal. We know Frank Clark is crazy and awesome in the playoffs, as opposed to the regular season. He's been a little bit lackluster. And I think the playoff sacks since he joined the Chiefs, he is number 1 in the NFL in sacks in the playoffs since joining the Chiefs. He's also played in a number of games, which is awesome. So he has 10.5 sacks in the playoffs since joining the Chiefs. Next closest is Nick Bosa with 8. So he has 2.5 more sacks. Now he has 3 more games. So he has 10.5 sacks in 12 games. He's got almost a sack per game in those playoff games that he has played in for the Chiefs. How is Jimmy Butler, Frank Clark? Sort of the same thing. He's been awesome at sacking the quarterback in the post. No, wait. Jimmy Butler, in the regular season, since he has been a member of the Miami Heat, from 2019 to 2023, he has 10 games in the regular season scoring 35 or more points, which is the 36th most in the NBA.
It's very good. Many guys don't ever do that, but it's not
36th most. He has 10. Since joining the Miami Heat, do you know how many playoff games of 35 or more
like
points
every
he has?
time almost.
He has 13 games. He has the most games of 35 or more points since joining the Miami Heat.
That's pretty good.
He has the most since joining the Miami Heat in games. 13. Luka Doncic has 12. Devin Booker has 11. Jamal Murray with 9. He's catching up. I mean, he might surpass Jimmy. Well, he'll be going up against Jimmy Butler, so he may not surpass him. But Jamal Murray has back-to-back games with 30 or more points, 35 or more points. And Jamal Murray had, Jimmy Butler had, 16 points last night. But it's amazing and crazy how quickly that switch is flipped for Jimmy Butler. Because in the regular season, he's a good player. But if he played like this every night, they wouldn't be the 8 seed. They wouldn't have had to win in the play-in game, lose and then win in the play-in game to even be in this position to be taking on the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and a chance to win the NBA Finals this year and go into the NBA Finals twice in the last 4 years. They played the Lakers in the bubble in the NBA Finals. Did the Heat, and to get this opportunity again, he's been phenomenal. And he, if you the players around Jimmy Butler in the regular season that have 35 points or more. Here are the players with 10 or more 35-point games over the last 4 years in the regular season, which is all Jimmy Butler has in the regular season with the Heat. Terry Rozier, Fred VanVleet, Kristaps Porzingis, Anthony Edwards, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and he's only played 10 games, I think. C.J. McCollum, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George both have only played about that. Julius Randle, Pascal Siakam, Russell Westbrook, He's got 17. But you start to get into,
Right.
these guys, now you get into the point of almost like double that. Like Embiid has 73 games in the last 4 years of 35 or more points. And Jimmy Butler has 10.
Yeah.
One player is still playing. The other player left quietly in the playoffs. So, I mean, you look at Jimmy Butler, and if he just simply played in the playoffs the way that he did in the regular season, he wouldn't nearly have the name or the cachet or be viewed in the level that he is. And what he did on Friday night, when Grant Williams decided to hit a three to put the Celtics up 11, and for whatever reason, talked trash to Jimmy Butler down the court. And then Jimmy Butler looks at him like, what are you doing, dude? And he just goes off.
Yeah.
He just goes off. And after the game, Shaq says, I remember one time when I was walking down the street and there was a dog that wasn't bothering me. And then I bothered the dog and it bit me.
Yeah, don't do that.
Just like, it's exactly what happened with Grant Williams and Jimmy Butler. But it's been amazing what he's been able to do. Like Terry Rozier and these guys.
It's a crazy thing that you have an 8 seed they're going to make the finals. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I don't bet big. I would bet big that they're not losing 4 straight to this Celtics team.
I would guess
And
that too.
as you mentioned, they lost their first play-in game, and they were one game away from being eliminated, and they had to sneak in, and they won the game. They beat the Bulls, I think, right? And then you got to play the Bucks. You got to play the 1 seed. Big bad Bucks, easily dispatched of them, and they've just been like red hot in the postseason. That's when you want to get hot, right? You want to be the team that builds momentum as they go, and winning the first 2 games in Boston, I did not think even on the radar really, and you sneak up and win game 1 or whatever. Allow Celtics game 2, they'll be ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. I mean, that was a better game, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
It kind of got
Well, and that's what I mean.
But
I think they win that one. If Grant Williams doesn't
Shut
talk
your
trash
mouth.
to Jimmy Butler,
Yeah.
they're up 11, and Jimmy Butler's just like, okay,
yeah,
and then he just goes off, and just every time down the court, bucket. Like just let the sleeping dog lie, and it might be 2-1 right now. Not saying the Celtics would have won the series because the Heat have clearly been.
You're already down 1-0.
Yeah.
Why do you? I think people learn the hard way a lot of times, and they could be smart if they look back at history and say, don't start trouble with people, especially people who get hot and are really, really good.
Yeah.
You don't tug on Superman's cape, right? You don't go off and try to. How many Jordan stories did you see during The Last Dance? But someone might not have even said anything.
Yeah,
he could have been lying about
just
it.
He just made it up.
It's hard to
sometimes.
tell. But you just don't. There's no reason to do that. And there's 2 seconds on the clock, and you're up 8.
Yeah.
And you're good to go.
Yep, feel free.
Don't start that stuff. You see enough NBA games, you know how they can go. But the games are going to be fine, I guess, coming down the stretch here. The Lakers have a chance tonight. They got to win a game. I don't want these to be 2 sweeps and just kind of wait, because then the momentum will all be gone, because they're not going to move the.
And the playoffs have been
finals up.
great until the conference finals.
The playoffs were awesome. There's so many great games.
And then these have
really
been dogs.
good games. But maybe we'll have some drama left in here.
Let's hear from the TNT crew after the game last night when they first start. The game is over. They head to Ernie, Kenny, and, of course, Shaq and Chuck. And here's that conversation, about 2 minutes long, of those guys talking about what they just witnessed.
Well, that was ugly. Yep. If you're a Celtic fan, especially. Beat down. But just watching this one, 128-102, the final, as Miami takes a 3-0 lead. And as physical as it got tonight was, Shaq, you looked like you were very punched in the head.
You know what? It was about to be some furniture moving up here. Then Ernie got a shot. The Godfather had my back.
Shaq and Chuck.
You're right,
more
Edwin.
than the Celtics.
Come on, man. That was it. I'm embarrassed as a Celtic fan right now.
Yeah, that was bad.
That's bad, man.
Beat down.
Beat down at the beach.
You're a Celtic fan? When did you become that?
I say, if you're a Celtic fan, I don't even think you mind losing, but that was humiliating.
We welcome you to Inside the NBA, presented by Kia, though it feels a lot more like a Forensic Files episode after watching that. That was...
I got a question.
You got a question before we do the highlights?
Yeah, just one question.
Wait, we're going to show the highlights of that thing?
Since the Celtics quit, can we quit?
That's right. No.
Okay.
You don't have that in you. Hey,
You're
you
right.
don't have any quitting.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Didn't we talk about you having
right.
played in this building?
You're right.
Oh, excuse me. Having
Roll the
built this
tape.
building?
You're right. My bad.
I guess
my
you
bad.
mean when he's eating, he don't have no quitting in me.
My bad.
Oh, you got skinny. You talking fat jokes all night. Look at that.
First of all, I'm skinnier than Chuck.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
All right, Chuckster.
Yes, sir.
Take me through a few highlights.
Well, if you guys listen, we got a crack stab, but we find any good Celtics highlight.
There you go. I mean, the intro music was playing in the background while they were just simply clowning the Celtics, and they did quit. I mean, that's exactly what happened. And then after the game was over, you hear Mazzulla say that I didn't have the team ready. And look, take one for the team, right? You're the coach. The buck stops with me, all of that. But when you're already in hot water and people are already talking about firing you, that's a tough thing to come out and say, I didn't have them ready. I didn't have the team ready.
Maybe don't be too honest there.
Have I lost the locker room? Things like that. Like, I don't know that those are things you want to sit up there and talk about after the game. Look, the Heat are an awesome team. They came out and played the way that they did. We got to find answers for it. This series isn't over. We got to take it one game at a time. Just win the next game, and then we'll go on and figure out the next game after that. We can't think about winning 4 games. We got to win one game right now. But I didn't have them ready to play. Well, I mean, the first half of the first quarter, the Celtics were leading. So was it a matter of not having them ready to play? I don't know. After that, it was just a beatdown in that in
the
that game.
Celtics certainly seemed more engaged against the Sixers than they have in this series. And that's part of the rivalry bit and all that, but it's not over. NBA playoffs, it's a season, man. It is a long, long ordeal, and these series, especially if they go deep like that one did, can take a lot out of you. And maybe they weren't quite ready for game one, really, as much as last night.
I just don't know like how much goes into players and teams of what they think of their opponent, like actually think of their opponent when they say, look, this is an 8 seed. We are the heavy favorites, and we're going to win this. Okay, we lost game one, but I don't know that the Celtics players echo what the Celtics fans were, but the Celtics fans were like, we're good. Yeah, nice game. The beatdown comes tonight in game 2. All right, the Heat are going to get put back in their place in game 2 tonight, and the Celtics are going to be fine. Okay, great. We win in 5. You know, you got game 1. You stole one, but, you know, savor the flavor. It's not going to be something that happens very often. And I don't know that the Celtics echoed that, like the players, but that was certainly the feel from a lot of the fans, at least, you know, on Twitter, which is a great representation
That's how it is,
of all fan bases. You read some of those, it is absolutely the direct feeling of all of the collective. But, I mean, I don't think the players would have done that, but, man, they don't really feel like they gave all that much effort once that game started to get away from them. They just quit. That was it. They haven't played defense very well and all of that stuff. The Nuggets have just simply been amazing. I mean, the Nuggets have just been phenomenal. And Jamal Murray in the fourth quarter of Game 2 and the first half of Game 3, in those 3 quarters, scored 54 points. He can do that. And that's what the Nuggets have that nobody else does. Nuggets are winning the championship this year. Even though Jimmy Butler is going to be playoff Jimmy and all of that stuff, the Nuggets are going to win the championship. The question is going to be 5, 6, or 7.
Well, here's what you don't know. I mean, these players aren't part of it, but I mean, the organization has never been to the finals. Will they all freak out and fall apart? Yeah. I mean, they played twice this year. The Nuggets won both games, but they were both very close. I mean, I'm not counting the Heat out of anything.
Yeah, I mean, with Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra is
great
awesome,
coach, man.
But like, I don't think they're not gonna. This series, they had the best player and the best coach, and we've seen what Tatum and Brown have done. Like last night, they combined for 26 points.
Yeah.
In a Game 3, you're down 2-0, and those two guys shoot 12 of 35 from the floor. And 26 combined points there. That is, and 1 of 14 from 3. Those two guys combined. We'll see what happens tonight, and then we'll see what happens tomorrow night. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling, wrap up this hour. Then we'll get into some Royals. We'll get into some stadium talk with Clay County, Jackson County, Maracue, the Royals. We'll get into that. Vinny Pasquantino's contract, what he said to SiriusXM last week or on Friday, and then Jordan Lyles conundrum. That conversation about Jordan Lyles, mistake, not mistake, were they sort of in a spot to where, is it as bad as it looks? Certainly probably is, but we'll take a timeout, continue rolling more Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. All right, some news that's going to come out in the NFL. Adam Schefter tweeting out. And this is where, like, when you post a story, sometimes the picture comes up that maybe, I don't know what picture they choose or how the algorithm is for the different pictures. But there's a picture of a Sports Center, like, TV that's got Sports Center on it and has Patrick Mahomes on the TV. Now, of course, the bottom line says coming up Mahomes health updates. But it's a picture of Patrick Mahomes. And then on the right side of this picture, there's a bunch of like lines and betting figures and things like that. And
for the
odds
Super Bowl, yeah.
For the Super Bowl. That's off to the right.
And then there's a shadowy figure with his face.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So that's the picture for this tweet. And this tweet says, after 5 players were suspended in April, the NFL is now investigating a second wave of potential violations of its gambling policy, sources tell ESPN's David Purdom. Now, there's an algorithm or whatever that presents that picture, or did they create that picture? I don't know. But anytime you see a gambling policy or a second wave,
you don't want to see
the picture's Patrick Mahomes. But I would guess that Mahomes is not one of the players in the second wave. But David Purdom for ESPN writes, regulated sports betting spreading rapidly around the nation. The NFL is trying to stay ahead of potential problems with increased monitoring and education while hoping stiff penalties act as a deterrent. Recent events suggest the enhanced measures are warranted. In the wake of 5 players being suspended in April, the NFL is investigating a second wave of potential violations of its gambling policy, multiple sources told ESPN. Then he goes into the landmark ruling, the NFL's relationship with the gambling, what the players are allowed to do and not allowed to do, where they are allowed to gamble, what they are allowed to gamble on. Fantasy sports is not like under that umbrella. They can place wagers on different sports. They can't place any wagers on anything at a team facility or anything like that, which is where Jameson Williams, he was not betting on the NFL. He placed a bet on a different sport at the team facility, so he got a 6-game suspension there. For the Lions, we've seen that. But now there is just this unknown sitting out there of a second wave of
and
potential
a wave
violations.
Like more than 1 or 2. That
Right,
sounds like
right.
probably 5 or 6 or maybe more
So
people.
if this is a second wave, then he would view those 5 players as a wave.
Yeah.
So that would be the first wave, those 5 players that were suspended by the NFL in their gambling policy. Drake just did the wave as if he was at a baseball game. And now a second wave of potential violations. This is one to where no news is good news for your particular team, because at this point, who knows?
I would expect if they're putting this story out today, I would think we would know fairly soon if there's some names of some people who are going to be suspended. We'll see. But
I would guess it would be soon, or did he just get word that they're, because the way he writes it is the NFL is investigating a second wave of potential violations. We found out about the violations when the suspensions came down with the Lions
time.
players and whoever else was involved in this. So if they're doing the investigation, how long does it take to investigate, figure out right, wrong, indifferent, whatever happened, and then levy the penalties, which are in the CBA? So it wouldn't take a whole lot of sitting down and brainstorming and saying, well, what penalty should we give this person? What penalty should we give that person? Like, those are going to be set. So I don't know. It's a cloud that's going to be hanging over this second wave.
then you start getting the fights. What is the team facility? Is that the parking lot? Where is my car?
That's right.
Or what? I mean... But we know
well, for
this.
the Chiefs, they can't do it at Arrowhead Stadium at team facilities.
That's right.
Yeah.
We know this here. It's very specific. They know where you are because you can just barely be across state line or even in Kansas and still not place your bet.
Right.
So they got it down pretty good.
If there aren't Chiefs players, if Chiefs players didn't bet on the NFL, I would guess the Chiefs players would be cleared of any wrongdoing because unlike some other teams, their facilities are in a place to where you cannot place online wagers.
It's a layer of protection for
That's right. That's right.
I break this rule.
I believe Clark and Andy Reid and Brett Veach would like the geofence around Arrowhead Stadium. You can't place a bet there at the practice facility.
There's a race going on inside your body, and sometimes the bad guys, otherwise known as arthritis,
913-912-4810, the text line to join us. We'll talk with Myron Metcalf at noon from ESPN, get his thoughts on some basketball, the NBA, conference finals, little NBA draft, and transfer portal, some college hoops, things like that with Myron Metcalf coming up at noon. And then Kylie McDaniel from ESPN. Love talking with Kylie McDaniel. Does a great job with the prospects and the draft and things like that. And he's got a story that he wrote over the weekend of the best players from age 16 to 25. And all of the Royals that show up on that list. Not even the best players. He ranks the top 10 at each age. And all of the Royals, there are 3 Royals that show up on the list. Bobby Witt Jr.
All of the Royals.
Oh, wait, I meant 3 names. There are 3 names that show up on the list for the Royals. Bobby Witt Jr. is the only one that shows up out of top 10 in age 20.
But what if they're the 11th best player at every
top 10 in age 22,
age.
top 10 in age 23, top 10 at age 24, top 10 at age 25? Nothing. Nathan. Nada. Except Bobby Witt Jr. We'll talk to him about that. Why are you ignoring? Did you forget about the Royals organization overall? Did you just forget about that? No, he did not.
Some people have.
And also with the number 8 pick in the draft, a quick primer on maybe the Major League Baseball draft to talk about somebody else that could come up and help him 4 years from now. So we'll do that coming up at about 12:40 or so. And then Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director. Quick little nugget to pass along. The owners' meetings going on in Minnesota the next couple of days. One of the big issues that they will be talking about, they tabled the Thursday night football flex. If they could flex Thursday night football games, where teams would be flexed into Thursday night football, not and flexed out of, obviously. But that was tabled at the meetings in March. There wasn't enough support to really take it to a vote. And they have adjusted it. They've amended it that now there would be a 28-day window ahead of any flexing of a Thursday night game. And there would only be 2 games max. So the amendments on this are now there's a 28-day window. So you are going to be told 28 days ahead of time if you're going to be flexed into Thursday night or out of Thursday night. And there can only be 2
for the whole year.
For the whole year between weeks 13 and 17. So there's a
just do it for
4
drama.
or 5,
yeah.
And there's 2 weeks that you can flex it. They added these amendments because they think it has a better chance of the owners approving it now.
Yeah, the owners, there was more than one owner who was not into this last time because they heard their players talking about it. And if you know you're playing on Thursday, 6 months from now, you can be planned and get the whole thing figured out. Switching someone to a Thursday within 2 weeks just wasn't going to go for them. And there were plenty of owners, actual owners, who were outspoken saying, my players don't like this, we're not going to vote for this. I still think this is slimish to pass, even at 28 days, because I think there are enough players who don't want that to happen. Now, if it's only 2, and it may not happen at all. I mean, they won't guarantee that they'll do it. I mean,
just the option. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to flex a Sunday night game.
Here's what we know. We know that they put this schedule out in the middle of May, and trying to guess who's going to be good in the middle of December, in the middle of May, is nearly impossible. Yeah. And they do their best to try to make these schedules right. And listen, the way the league works is these TV companies pay billions of dollars that goes into a coffer that the owners and players divide up, and they can fight about how they divide it up. But that's where the huge amount of the money comes from. Suites, yes. Tickets, yes. Things like that. But the real big money is from these TV deals. And if you're going to take the money from the TV partners, and it's not all one partner, okay? This is the league that's partners with everybody. They're partners with CBS. They're partners with NBC. They're partners with Fox. They're partners with ABC. And now they're partners with not even television in Prime and with Sunday Ticket on Google, basically YouTube TV. But Prime has paid them a lot of money, and that's their Thursday night game. And what they don't want is, they thought Arizona was going to be good last year, and they weren't any good, and they've got them stuck there on a Thursday night in a game that no one wants to watch. They're trying to get people to sign up for Prime and forget to cancel it and give $13 a month for the rest of their lives. I mean, that's the game. The biggest this was the case last year on the opening game. The Chiefs played Chargers, the first ever Prime game. That was their biggest day of signups in the history of Prime. Because normally there's never an event to sign up for. You just, you sign. There's 365 days a year you can sign up. Well, this one they had a thing that you can sign up for, and people signed up. So they want these games to be good because otherwise they're going to cancel.
Yeah.
And then they won't have them anymore. But go look at Week 16. Let's see which game's the best game is. I mean, just try to pick the best game.
I'm looking through like Week 13. The Thursday night football game is Seahawks at Cowboys. That could be a fun one because Seahawks are expected to be better. Dallas is
Dallas. It's always a draw.
A national draw. So that's Week 13. Week 14, Thursday night football, Patriots Steelers. Could be a really good one.
Yeah, that's the one they probably may stink too.
Yeah. Week 15 is Chargers Raiders. That could be a great one. Could be a stinker if the Raiders really suck or whatever. Week 16, Saints and Rams. That feels like a perfect spot to flex out of a Thursday night game that's scheduled for the New Orleans Saints at the LA Rams because the Rams are trying to get the number 1 pick. So by week 16, what's the Rams? What is their what does their record look like?
What game can they flex into it too? That's the other side of the equation.
Because that is a week starting where you've got 2 different Saturday games: Bengals, Steelers, Bills,
and you've
Chargers.
got Christmas, so there's not a lot of games.
So you're not flexing out of those. Sunday Night Football ain't going to give up their Sunday Night Football. CBS Game of the Week at 3:25. They don't give up their CBS Game of the Week.
My guess is there'll be some caveats on here, like you couldn't just pick any game. That's the way it works right now for the flex. You can't. It has to be like a 3:30 game on a particular network, and it's that type thing. So it won't be easy. There will be negotiations.
Well, yeah, it'll be
if you're flexing out of one of these games.
So the reason I think it's got a much better chance of passing now than it did when it was tabled is you've got a full month ahead of time notice. You've got a small window of weeks that it can even happen. And that's going to have to pass a pretty high bar to say this game is good enough. We're going to move this into Thursday night, which is a game that isn't already Monday night, Sunday night, or a game of the week on Fox or CBS at 3:25 that is protected from being flexed. I mean, how many of those marquee games are going to be noon on Sunday that are going to be better than the game they already have on Thursday night?
That particular week right there, like the Commanders are playing at the Jets, maybe Aaron Rodgers, and they've got them going good, and maybe Washington rises up and they're in the playoff hunt. I could see how they'd say, we want Aaron Rodgers on our deal. But I'm telling you, man, it is so hard to predict who's going to be good. And these the way they do this, they're trying to do this in partnership with their partners.
Yeah.
I mean, and so they – NBC wants their big games. They've tried really hard to have the Monday Night Football games not stink, Yeah. And, at this point, CBS and Fox, those 3:30 windows are monsters.
Yes.
They get 25, 27 million viewers because people are home and they have the big game going on there and it's nationwide and they're all watching this thing. These are big, big numbers. That's why the Chiefs have noon game besides Christmas.
Right.
I think maybe the Jags game.
Jags is the only one that's a noon game besides Christmas.
Everything else 3:25. They could get more people on the 3:25 sometimes than even the Sunday night games because it's just like they get the big nationwide spread and it's a convenient time. People are home, especially later in the year it gets. You're not out doing things. It's cold. It's dark. Let's hunker down and watch football.
Well, like in Week 16, for instance, so Saints and Rams doesn't sound like a game that.
But it could be for all the marbles.
Yeah, could be for all the number 1 marbles.
You don't even know.
But the noon games on Sunday: Colts Falcons, Packers Panthers, Browns Texans, Lions Vikings. Could be a fun one. That late in the season for the division. Commanders Jets, like you talked about, and then Seahawks Titans. Those are the games at noon on Sunday that you would think would have the most likely chance of being flexed into that Thursday night game. And then the Thursday night game on Week 17 is Jets at Browns. So that could be Rodgers and Deshaun Watson going up against each other, depending on how good the Browns are.
Oh, that probably affects the Jets won the week before too. Maybe they wouldn't
that's a
win
good
them on
point.
twice
Maybe they
in a row.
wouldn't win
There
them
could be a
on twice.
parameter. I don't know. You know.
Yeah, so then the Jets play that week. So is that going to be a game that it's like, okay, you got to take that game out of Thursday? Saturday game, Lions and Cowboys, but the noon Sunday games, there's some interesting ones here for noon Sunday. Dolphins, Ravens could be a fun one. Patriots, Bills. Looking through here.
I just look for the next week. I hadn't really noticed this. There is no Monday Night Football the next week because I think that would be the first. That's bowl games, and so they're having basically Monday Night Football on Saturday night.
Yes, So they're having that one.
There's a lot to plan around.
7:15. But yeah, I mean, if you look at this year, the tight window of week 13 to 17, and then you have to give them a month's notice, so you have to expect that game 4 weeks from now,
which also
to be worthy
easy.
of changing the schedule around to where
how
you're
quickly can someone fall apart?
You're taking a team that's going to be playing on Sunday and moving them to Thursday now, and you're taking a team that's going to be playing on Thursday, moving them to Sunday, and you're flipping that whole thing around, which is home schedules, dates, fans. Their schedules, things like that, and you have.
They
and it
don't
has
care
to be
about
worth
the
it.
fans.
I know, but it has to be worth it
Or
to
the
be able to
media.
do that, or whatever,
or the players.
Yes,
Put these in order. Who do they care about the least? Media is who they care about the least, but
media, then fans, then players.
Yeah, because I thought listen, you know this is happening. If you're week 18, it's all TBD now. No one has a date or a time on week 18 because they're going to move 2 or 3 of those games to Saturday because they'll find a game that either doesn't matter or a game that's for all the marbles or whatever. They're going to move those to Saturday. Last year, there were plenty of people who had plans to go to Vegas and had to change their plans because they thought they were playing on Sunday, and then they had to change their plans to get out there on Saturday early because you're 2 hours earlier out there.
Yeah,
that's just the way it goes. The Chiefs this year are on the road again, so I mean there are probably people planning on going to L.A. warmer, go see the Chargers at the end, and
November
that game
26th.
could very well be on a Saturday.
Yeah, you get Thanksgiving, then head over to Vegas after Thanksgiving. Just have a little. You know what? Hopefully you get that Friday off. Have a little Thanksgiving. Fly out to Vegas on a Friday, and
you have Friday off so you can watch Prime Video and watch the first ever Black Friday game.
That's exactly right. Yes,
they haven't moved Arkansas. They always wait for the Arkansas-Missouri game.
Yeah,
and they don't move it right away. It's right now. I think it's scheduled for Saturday, but I don't know if they'll end up being on Friday.
Because that's always been Friday at like 2:30.
Yeah, it's that CBS 2:30 game.
Yeah.
It kind of took the place of the LSU Arkansas game would play that day, and
which I liked. I loved it. 2:30 on Friday, Black Friday. It'd be Missouri, Arkansas.
Yeah, I think right now the thing is still scheduled. I'm looking at it it's on Saturday now, but that doesn't mean it doesn't change to Friday eventually. I think Big 12 has a couple of games on Friday as well this year. I mean, they've tried to do that, but there'll be some games there. But none of those matter because the Amazon game is on the internet. It's not on a channel, so you don't have to push anything away from a channel.
Yeah, that's true. 913-912-4810. So that's something to keep an eye on with the NFL owners meetings going on if they're going to approve that. I would guess that'll be approved. Text said if the Chiefs-Jags game was week 14 instead of week 2, it's probably the flex game. Could be, yeah. If it was the noon game, that was the week of
to flex
Saints,
in or flex out is the question.
So probably flex into Thursday night. If it was a noon game on the week that had the Saints and Rams on that Thursday night, that might be one to where you go, okay, we're going to flex that game into Thursday night.
If the Jags fall apart, they're no good. I don't know. Yep. Are you ready to tell me the Jags are going to be good in week 16 of this year? I don't know.
Yep. See, this text comes in and exactly what you're talking about in the they don't care about the fans. Text says they're going to piss off a lot of fans, too. I doubt they're going to refund my flights or hotel if I book a road trip for that because people have you're already – if you're going to Vegas, you might have already booked that.
Yeah.
Right? You might have already
Chiefs
been planning
fans
that.
Bought tickets.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago when this schedule came out.
Yeah.
That's when they started doing it. They weren't all just waiting for Germany. They were looking to see.
And that's a week that they're not going to flex that to, Thanksgiving. So I think you're fine with Vegas on Sunday, November 26th. The Thursday, Friday games are set. Thanksgiving set. They're not going to flex somebody out of Thanksgiving.
No, Thanksgiving is set. That's not part of it.
So that particular one there. But, looking at the other ones, the only other sort of games that could be flexed.
Thanksgiving is now week 12, so it can't be flexed, right?
Yeah.
It starts with week 13.
And that's already Green Bay Sunday Night Football. Then you got Buffalo that's protected by CBS in the game of the week at 3:25. New England's Monday Night Football. They're not going to flex that one. Vegas is Christmas. They're not going to flex that one. Cincinnati is, again, 3:25 CBS game of the week protected. And then the Chargers are not going to be Thursday Night Football. That's either going to be Saturday or Sunday.
The Chiefs already have 2 Thursdays, right? So
yeah, so they will not. That won't be a flexed one for the Chiefs.
Are there any European games that late in the season? Because they can't be flexed either, obviously.
Yeah,
no, they're week. They're before. They're all before
that. I
think
the Chiefs are the last ones in week 9,
right? No, there's
right?
one after them. I think week 10 might be
because the Jags are like week 6 and 7 or something like that, and they don't even have a bye week after their 2 weeks.
Maybe the Chiefs are the last one. Yeah, that could be the last one.
Yeah. Also, Texas F1 is going to be in Vegas Thanksgiving weekend.
Right. A lot of people thought
that's pretty awesome.
That the Chiefs were going to be there then. It's going to be wild.
That will be a that'll be a trip that a lot of people are going to be making, just to not even Chiefs fans. If you can go and check out the F1 race and then you can go watch Patrick Mahomes, if you don't really have a dog in the fight, like, hey, I can see the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes there in Vegas with the F1 race. I can just make a whole weekend of it in Vegas. That might be a pretty tough ticket.
Week 10 is the last game. That's the Patriots. Okay. So then that's over. There's no flexing of those yet.
Yeah. So week 13 to 17, I think it'll be passed because of the higher threshold to even have this happen. And it will at least give hey, Amazon, we care about you on Thursday night. We care about you. We're going to go out of our way. We're going to allow some games to be flexed into Thursday night. But it is going to be an incredibly high bar to be able to clear in this threshold to flex any of these games there.
Yeah, for sure.
So for sure, and the Chiefs would not be one of them because they're week 13 through
F1
17
is actually
games.
The week before.
Is
if
it really?
You spend a whole week in Vegas to watch F1 and stay for a football game, that's a lot of Vegas, bro.
Interesting.
That is a lot.
Yeah, I don't know the
Vegas.
F1 schedule.
F1 schedule is
not sure.
November 16th to 18th. So it is the
so it's the week before.
Yeah. I would think the Raiders have got to be gone during that. Although it's Vegas.
Yeah. That would be week 11 then.
Week 11, the Raiders are at Miami. They got them
so
far
they're gone.
away. Far away.
So there you go. But do you want to stay in Vegas
for a week?
Whole week?
Yeah, one time I think I was in Vegas for 3 nights, and that was.
I was going to say, what's the max? Too many. What's the max number of nights in Vegas or days that you're there that you're just like, all right, I got to get out of here. I got to go. Like I feel like 4. 4 would be like, all right, it's 4, enough.
Forget about it.
It's enough. 3 might be. 2 or 3 might be the right there.
I think
2
I spent
might be
about
perfect.
3 or 4 days out there once visiting friends, and they didn't live on the Strip. So we were doing other things.
Yeah, you're okay.
Go see the Hoover Dam, but like on
take
the
that
Strip,
damn tour.
Vegasing.
Yeah, and then get out of the damn city.
No, can't Vegas that long. That's too much Vegas.
No way.
People have those conferences and stuff. I've had friends who've had to go out there for a conference for like a week for these things.
Oh.
No, thank you.
Yep.
No, thank you.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and I do want to get into the Royals here. I want to talk about Jordan Lyles.
Do you really want to do that?
I do, because I think it's an interesting conversation around him, because I went and looked at the other free agent pitchers, what they got paid around Jordan Lyles, because they're not going to pay for Jacob deGrom. So around the Jordan Lyles type player, which players got paid, what they got paid, and then what they're doing this year to see if it is, rough for the Royals to choose.
Is it better?
Jordan Lyles.
I don't want to.
We'll find out.
Okay.
We'll find out. As almost anything, when you're looking at a lot of different players, it's going to be a mixed bag that's in there. But I also want to talk about the stadium issue with Clay County, Jackson County, and the Royals. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Todd Lebo, Drake, Josh Briscoe, jet setting to Europe for a couple of weeks. He'll be back sometime in July, maybe. I don't know. I lose track of the dates. Like, I don't know. He's gone for like a couple of weeks, and then he's back at some point. I don't know, maybe June 5th or 6th.
He's out of vacation after that, so you'll see him every day after that.
Yeah. Then at that point, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to be sick on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week."
When you get married and you go, you do some days off pre and then post. Yeah, you're done with vacation, son.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll be back.
So he's off from May 18th to June 5th.
Yeah,
so
he's off the 5th, and he'll be here on the 6th.
Oh, well, yeah, you got to take that Monday off, too. You got to take a vacation from the vacation. There is nothing wrong with taking a day off after you get back from vacation.
I always plan
yeah.
to take off. I try my best to plan getting home on Friday or Saturday so that I don't have to roll into work the next day. I don't want to get home if there's travel issues or something on Sunday and you're like, right. So I like that day. I like that day to decompress.
Yeah, I am totally with you on that.
But who's taking care of the possums while they're out of the country?
That's a great point. Do they have a possum watcher?
Because he left all kinds of instructions about the show. Where
there's
got to
be some possum instructions.
Stuff,
for neighbors.
He said there's nature.
That's where possums are supposed to be, right?
There's a whole ecosystem that will watch them.
Well, I asked him, because he loves these possums, and I looked it up, and in the wild, in captivity, a possum lives about 2 years, and they're going to have these things for like 6 months. I'm like, wow, that is a lot of work for something that's not going to make it very long once you let it go.
Why are you bringing these truth bombs?
Yeah, I didn't want to hurt him. He can't hear it.
They had the possums guarding the cinnamon rolls.
Well, they didn't guard them well enough because Sterling ended his cinnamon roll 12 seconds after he got there.
And Mick Schaefer stole one on the way out. I don't know. Did you see the video?
No, I didn't.
I got to show you.
We had to take it back for a snack.
I got to show you the video because it became a big deal that Sterling had stolen this. This may be learned funniest best later on. That Sterling had taken. It was the dessert instead of in lieu of a cake. They had a big cinnamon roll tower. Mm-hmm. And that was dessert. And before dinner even started,
before the wedding started, Sterling had one.
Sterling went and grabbed a cinnamon roll, thinking it was like an appetizer, a nice little snack. If that was the wedding cake, he wouldn't have walked over there and sliced one open and grabbed one. But he
might have. I don't know.
Yeah. And so then that became such a big deal at the reception about Stu stealing a cinnamon roll and getting in trouble that then Mick Schaefer, on his way out because he had to leave early, has a video first person of him walking and reaching and grabbing a cinnamon roll and then running out the front door.
I think it was actually okay at that point. I think.
I don't know that it was.
Because they didn't have a cutting of those. We ate them at dinner.
Yeah. But I think he was gone before that, right?
Yeah, maybe so. We were at the taco line.
Yeah, we were in the taco line. Yeah, it was fine.
It was taco line. So, yeah, Briscoe will be back sometime.
Yeah, eventually. Texas.
He may still be in town now. I don't know when they're actually going to Europe. I don't know if they left the day after.
I don't know either. All I was told is that he's going to be gone. I'm like, okay, so here's my schedule while you're gone. You can go do whatever, but I'm worried about my schedule. I don't know when you leave.
I don't care about you or what's going on.
Yes,
and then you're leaving.
Well, I'm going to be in Tahoe.
Well, no, you're going to Louisville.
Oh yeah,
that's like Europe.
It's roughly the same thing. There's a Versailles.
There is Versailles.
There's a Versailles. Not Versailles, because come on, you pronounce the letters in these words just like Louisville.
We got a Versailles, Missouri too.
That is absolutely that is true. Yeah, there's niece is graduating, so that's going to be a lot of fun coming up this weekend. So that's going to be what, you and Stu on Friday?
Yeah, we'll be over at Smoke and Fire. Have a fun remote over there. It's kind of the end of National Barbecue Month, so we'll have a good time. I'll see what Stu can go in there and eat too early.
Can you make cinnamon rolls on a grill?
I promise you, Jim Cotty could.
They probably can. Can you smoke some cinnamon rolls?
Yes, I'm sure he could.
Yes. Can you make bread on a grill?
Absolutely.
You can make some cinnamon rolls and then you just glaze those things.
Maybe like ice cream you can't make.
That would be difficult to make. Well,
some of that Dr. Pepper ice cream
it's just
on a
drink. It's just a drink now. It's just
get your straw out.
Turned into just the cream. It's not even ice cream anymore. It's just cream. 913-912-4810 text says, so he's got Corey's schedule.
Pretty much.
Is he using Corey's plane too?
Oh, I don't know. Corey
No.
would not allow him to use this plane.
No.
I don't think.
What I'm hoping he's doing is that with the travel that he will have on the plane ride over there, the different travel from country to country while he's in Europe, and then the travel back, I'm hoping he will start knocking out some of these movies that he's had in queue for the last 5 years.
Right, since he hasn't seen
He's got
things.
plenty of time. Plenty of time. He's got like a 12-hour flight, so that's 24 hours, that he's going to be able to watch something.
Well,
he's
if
married
you're-
now. You don't have to talk
You
to
don't
your
have to pay
wife.
attention to it anymore.
Yeah.
You just watch movies.
Yeah.
It's time that you've seen some classics.
As of like 4:45 on Saturday, conversation's done.
It was all done.
Yeah, I mean,
we're done talking.
You had a lot of conversation until then. Hope you got it all in. That's great.
It's a whole new world
That's
now.
exactly right. 913-912-4810. Jordan Lyles. Let's get into that. Let's
Give me
really
the good news.
Let's
Let's
really
go.
dive into Jordan Lyles here. So here's the bad news. Jordan Lyles has a 7.15 ERA. He's got a 1.34 WHIP. Actually, not terrible considering he's got a 7 ERA. Kind of thought that WHIP would be like 1.6 or something.
Hard luck. What you telling me?
That's exactly right. Yes, that's my takeaway from this: is that Jordan Lyles has just been unlucky. But no, Randy Gisarelli tweeting out. Let me find this tweet I had saved on.
I don't know why Rainey
on Jordan Lyles
is bullying people.
Well, I don't
with
think he's
numbers.
really bullying people. Jordan Lyles, the second pitcher in the last decade to surrender 4 or more runs in 9 straight appearances. By the way, he's started 10 games for the Royals. So 9 straight, he's given up 4 or more runs. He's thrown 56 and 2/3 innings. So he is eating those innings. He is chomping away at all of those innings.
That's
now
5 innings to start.
He's eating. That's 5.6.
Yeah, okay.
2.
Because he has a complete game.
5 and 2/3.
He does have a complete game.
Does have one. That skews a lot. If you take that complete game out, Todd.
Oh boy, you don't want to take that complete game out.
45 innings and 9 starts.
You do not want to take that complete game out.
Not as great. So he's got the 7+ ERA in 56 and 2/3 innings. They signed him 2 years, $17 million. So he's making $8.5 million per year. So if you look at the other players around Jordan Lyles, if you go through all of the different, like I went to a number of different free agent starting pitcher rankings before they were all signed. Like, this is the offseason, here are the rankings. And so the players roughly around Jordan Lyles, and there were 11 players that sort of popped up around Jordan Lyles on all these different lists. And so I looked at the age, looked at what they're doing this year, the money they're getting paid, etc., to see how bad Jordan Lyles' signing has been for the Royals compared to maybe some others that have been out there. Also, Zach Greinke right around Jordan Lyles.
Right.
In that.
It's
So
1 year, though, not
it's
2.
a 1 year, $8.5 million, and that's been fine. I mean, it's a 4.8 ERA, 1.2 WHIP, but he's also been eating innings at 52.
Pretty good for the Royals, though.
Yeah, because it's only 1 year, $8.5 million. And then Ryan Yarborough was right around there as well. That was 1 year, $3 million, and now he's on the 60-day IL with the head injury, with the unfortunate, incident that happened there with the fly ball or the line drive to his head. So looking at the 11 players, I put them into 2 categories. One category of these would have been better signings than Jordan Lyles. Another category of, well, these would have been more disastrous than Jordan Lyles. Yes. And it's almost split up evenly.
Oh, really?
It's 6 players that you would have said, you know what, this was better.
Yeah.
This would have been better than Jordan Lyles. 5 that were like, no, this was even more disastrous than Jordan Lyles. So you also would have had to spend a little bit more money if you're really getting into these would have been better. If you're looking at the around the same money that the Royals spent, it's really 3 other pitchers out of the 11 that would have been, you would have been
Quite a
better
bit
off going
better.
there. Michael Wacha for San Francisco, 32 years old. Jordan Lyles is 32 years old. He has a 3.5 ERA in 50 innings, so he's eating those innings. 1 less start.
Because he also got to pitch against the Royals once.
It's a good point, and he was pretty good.
And Jordan Lyles has not gotten to do that.
1.15 WHIP for Michael Wacha.
That's good.
He's making $6.5 million per year. But they signed him, San Francisco did, for 4 years, $26 million.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the Royals would have been in the business of a 32-year-old giving him a 4-year contract, even at $6.5 million per year,
Doubtful.
4 for 26. I doubt it as well. So if Michael Wacha wanted that security of 4 years, even though it's $2 million less per, so they would save $4 million over those first 2 years that they're giving, $17 million to Jordan Lyles. It'd be $13 for Michael Wacha. But you'd have him 2 more years paying $13 million. I think they would probably worry about Hunter Dozier.
Yeah, would you have him for 2 more years, or would you have him for 2 more years?
You want to get into with the Royals, where Hunter Dozier feels like an albatross of a contract, where for other teams they'd be like, let's just DFA him, move on, and just it's an accounting error. That's what it is. It's a decimal point for that. So that may not be in the cards for the Royals. That means 2 players kind of fit the criteria out of the 11 that were around him. Michael Lorenzen signed with Detroit. He's 31 years old. He signed 1 year, $8.5 million. Right. So exactly what Zach Greinke signed. He's got a 3.4 ERA. He's got a 1.2 whip. He has only 6 starts and 34 innings because he started the season on the IL with a groin injury. So he has played since April 15th. He's made every start since April 15th when he came off the IL. But it's only a 1-year deal, $8.5 million. You didn't have to give him a 2-year deal. Detroit signed him. And he's been pretty good for the Tigers since he's been healthy. But again, you're losing about 22 innings, and Lyles' job is to eat innings, not be successful.
Right.
His job is not to execute and be good. It's to eat innings. So if you're the Royals, you're like, well, thank God we didn't get that Michael Lorenzen because he's already 20 innings fewer. He may end the season with only 20 innings fewer than Jordan Lyles, or he may catch up to Jordan Lyles because of his ability to pitch deeper into games because he's been more successful. Drew Smyly, 34 years old. Chicago Cubs signed him. This is probably as close as it gets. 2 years, $19 million.
Yep.
He has a 2.86 ERA. He is leading the majors of all qualified pitchers in WHIP with .934, and he has thrown 50 innings, so only 6 fewer. That's really the guy that stands out. So out of the 11, and if we're looking at it and going, boy, the Royals, what are they doing with Jordan Lyles? Out of the 11 pitchers that were sort of in the market that they were in, it's only really one of them that matches the criteria of Jordan Lyles that has been a phenomenal signing for the Chicago Cubs.
Right.
And Smyly, 1 year, 8, or 2 years, 19, which the Royals, 2 years, 17. And he's been great. He has been awesome. Would he have the same whip or ERA if he was on the Royals? Probably not. Would he have thrown 50 innings because he might have elevated pitch counts if the defense let him down time and time again? Who knows? But that was clearly a good signing for the Chicago Cubs. Now, the Cubs also went out and signed Jameson Taillon, who has been a disaster. They gave him 4 years, $68 million, so $17 million per year. He has an 8.1 ERA. He has a whip of 1.8, and he's thrown only 26 innings. So there's the good and the bad for Chicago.
Yeah.
They went out and signed a couple of guys, Smyly on a 2-year deal, Taillon, awful. The Royals went out and signed a couple of guys around the same price. One has not been good. The other one's been expected in Zach Greinke on a 1-year deal. The guys who are not really in the category of what the Royals were looking at that would have been great signings. Zach Eflin is who the Rays signed. The Rays signed him 3 years, $40 million. He is 29 years old. That's a $13.3 million per year. So that's $5 million more per year for 3 years. So don't think the Royals were in that market. He's got a 3.4 ERA and a whip of only 1, and he's thrown 47 innings. And the other one, which the Royals would not have been in the market because they would have had to pay double than what they paid Jordan Lyles, but it would have been worth it, Nathan Eovaldi, 2 years, $34 million with the Rangers, so $17 million per. He's got a 2.8 ERA, a .9 whip, and he has thrown 60 innings, so 4 more innings than Jordan Lyles. He also has a 61-10 strikeout to walk number, does Nathan Eovaldi for the Rangers. But again, they gave him $17 million per for 2 years. The Royals gave Jordan Lyles 2 years for 17 total. Mm-hmm. So you would have had to essentially take Lyles, Greinke, and Yarborough and then go get Eovaldi, which would have been worth it because Lyles, Greinke, and Yarborough's on the 60-day. Lyles hasn't been all that great. Greinke's been okay. He's been average, but Eovaldi has been just dynamite for the Rangers. But then who fills the other spot? That's really what the Royals were looking at. How do we get through this season to where we're not using some younger guys that maybe aren't ready,
the whole thing's
destroying our bullpen?
I mean, because you can just be right or wrong. I mean, you try your best when you're signing these guys.
Because, for example, San Francisco, they went and signed 3 guys that were right around Jordan Lyles. Michael Wacha, we mentioned that. That was a good signing for San Francisco. 3.5 ERA, 1.1 WHIP, making $6.5 million per year. They signed him to a 4-year deal. They also signed Sean Manaea at 2 years, $25 million. And he has a 7.8 ERA. And he has come out of the bullpen a couple of times now. They signed Ross Stripling, 2 years, $25 million. He's got a 7.3 ERA and has come out of the bullpen a couple of times now instead of just being a starter. So they signed 3 guys that were right around Jordan Lyles. They did well with one of them, and then they are $25 million deep on a couple of players that have combined 7.5 ERA for the Giants.
We know this. Pitching is hard.
It is.
Finding pitching it's expensive. Yep. And if you don't develop it yourself, which the Royals have been trying to do, and so far, with all these young pitchers they have, I don't think any of it has been, if you're grading A, B, C, D, E, F from their 2018, or you can throw Brad Keller in here as a Rule 5. Is there an A in there?
Right.
We thought it was an A with Brady Singer last year. Well, it's not an A. Semester wasn't over, and Bubic is hurt. Lynch is hurt, trying to come back. Kowar is,
now
Keller's hurt.
Now back in AAA, Kowar is.
It's hard to be right about this stuff. Nobody's got some lights out pitching staff around there anymore. It's just difficult to do, but they continue to give people $8 million to come be bad at pitching because that's just what it costs.
Yeah, it's the price of doing business.
It's the price of doing business.
And there's a couple of things here. Also wanted to point out Detroit. So they signed 2 guys around this group of players. Lorenzen 1 year, $8.5 million, and he's been pretty good. And Matthew Boyd 1 year, $10 million, and he's got a 6+ ERA and a 1.5 WHIP. He hasn't been good, and he's made 8 starts. So 2 different 1-year deals. They, batted .500, which isn't great. Batting .500 in baseball is awesome unless you're having 2 different deals that are supposed to be starting pitchers, and one's got a 6+ ERA, and the other one's got a sub-4 ERA. But a couple of takeaways with this. This is the market you're dealing in. And if you're dealing in this market, it is a total crapshoot because I don't think anybody went out and said, Drew Smyly, you got to go and sign this guy. This 34-year-old pitcher, Drew Smyly, if you can get him, that guy's going to have a sub. He is ready to go as a 34-year-old.
Season's not over yet either.
Exactly. Yes. I don't think anybody was writing think pieces on the Cubs playing chess, not checkers, by going out and signing Drew Smyly, because they also gave 4 years, $68 million to Jameson Taillon, and he's got an 8.1 ERA, and they got 3 more years of him at $17 million per. So that hasn't exactly worked out in their favor. Again, throwing some darts at different players and trying to sign them. One, you're dealing in this market instead of dealing in the Nathan Eovaldi market of $17 million per, who's been awesome. And 2, it's the situation and the position that the organization is in right now, because they've got to go and supplement with a Jordan Lyles, a Zach Greinke, and a Ryan Yarbrough, because they don't have guys that are ready to come up and pitch in those spots and not spend $20 million on those 3 guys. So those guys making $20 million this year, which is a big chunk of their payroll, because they don't have a Jonathan Heasley ready to go. They don't have Kowar that's done well. Daniel Lynch is injured. Chris Bubic is injured. Now Brad Keller has an impingement on his ability to pitch, or his shoulder, whichever impingement is there. I'm not sure which one it is. But they don't have guys that are, ready to step in and do that when you need somebody to fill a role. And so you get a Jordan Lyles because you have to eat innings, because you don't want to have to bring guys up that you don't think are ready, and you don't want to have every 5 days this guy's going to go out there and you got to go and use the bullpen over and over and over and over again. I'm changing the definition of innings eater, because Jordan Lyles is not an innings eater. He is a start eater. Every 5 days, Jordan Lyles will start.
Yeah.
That's the value he brings to the Royals. It's not that he's going to go in the 6th or 7th inning and, quote, eat the innings. He's going to eat the starts.
He's going to take the ball.
Every 5 days. He and Greinke lead the majors in games started at 10.
Yeah. They have
are
made
tied.
all their starts.
They have made every single start. They have done what you want them to do. They've made $17 million this year. They're paying them $17 million to go out there and start every 5 days. So the Royals feel like here's 2 spots in the rotation that we don't ever have to worry about. It may not be great. We may not win those games, but you know what? It's an evaluation year, and we don't want to have to continue shuffling throughout the year to find different guys to fill roles. It hasn't been great, but it also hasn't been disastrous where, I mean.
Well, being 0-10 and Jordan Lyles starts is disastrous.
Well, disastrous in that,
yeah.
Sean Manaea's making 12 and a half.
Right.
Ross Stripling's making 12 and a half. Jamison Tyon's making 17. And those guys have been worse
it's just
than
what
Jordan
it is.
Lyles.
I mean, it's baseball contracts, especially pitcher contracts, will remind you a lot of, you're like, why does this quarterback make $200 million?
Right.
You just have to pay them. That's what you do.
Yeah.
If you're a starting pitcher in baseball, that's why guys don't want to go to the bullpen. They want to be a starter because the starter can get a multi-year deal. I mean, Jordan Lyles had a 4.5 ERA last year for a team that came out of nowhere, really, in Baltimore, and it got him $17 million.
Yep.
I mean, that's just how it works.
There you go. But yeah.
And it's all guaranteed money. This isn't some hocus pocus NFL contract where what's guaranteed or what's this or what's cap. Dude's going to make $17 million.
And I just wanted to look at it, and it's not to make an excuse for the Royals at all, because I'm not making an excuse for the Royals. I just wanted to see what other guys were getting and
I'm surprised
how they were performing.
that there are that many that are worse.
Me too. I was really surprised. I thought it was going to be the Royals had these 10 other guys that they could have gone and signed for cheaper or roughly the same amount that are pitching better. But it's pitching in baseball, like you say. I mean,
hey, they're all better than what are they? $40 million they're paying. The Mets are paying people to not even eat starts.
Yeah, not even start.
Yeah.
Be guys out there that are on the IL, take up spots on the IL.
Yeah.
Our
Our IL's full. We can't put anyone else on here.
We're good. And it felt like maybe Yarborough was going to turn things around.
He was having his best day as a Royal.
He looked good.
That was really scary.
And the start before that, he had 3 innings or 4 innings? He was great. And then he just lost it in the 5th inning.
Yeah.
So you take away that 1 inning, Todd, in those last 2 starts. But, that's what happens in baseball. You got to have depth to be able to come up. There is a positive, though, and that's Carlos Hernandez. And we haven't really talked about that. But Carlos Hernandez was really good yesterday. So I do think there's a positive from the weekend from the Chicago White Sox. And that may be the sort of glimmer, silver lining of if the new regime has a different approach to pitching and tapping into something. They've certainly done that with Carlos Hernandez. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling more Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 8.
We'll talk with Myron Metcalf coming up at noon from ESPN. We'll talk with Kylie McDaniel about 12:40 or so from ESPN. Myron Metcalf, some basketball, Kylie McDaniel, some baseball, and then Mick Schaefer at 1 o'clock. Some overall with Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 sports director. Todd Lebo hanging out with us until noon. Drake running the show today. Todd, do you give much weight to Clay County's release on non-Friday news dump, yet on a Friday, but still wanting it to be somewhat in the news cycle because it was early Friday afternoon, so there's still time for people to get it out and talk about it. The timing was interesting, but
they're being aggressive for sure. So to get their word out there.
Is it viable, or is this just sort of part of the process that takes place?
I think damn near anything is viable these days, okay?
That's true.
You think that Fulton County, Georgia, thought that the Braves were going to leave a less than 20-year-old stadium to move to Cobb County, Georgia? No, probably not. But they did. We've talked about this many times. Kansas City is multiple counties and multiple states. And that changes things. I mean, it really does. That you can have kind of intra-state fighting, which is what Mayor Q referenced in his tweet on Friday, because this is you can see downtown. How many people work downtown or work in Johnson County who live in Clay County? Tons, right? You just cross the river, there you go. And it's all Kansas City metropolitan area, but that big blob of a Kansas City has multiple lines in it, and those lines mean things to tax dollars. And this is one thing to really consider. I don't live in Kansas City, Missouri, and I don't work in Kansas City, Missouri, but the people who work and live in Kansas City or work or live in Kansas City, Missouri, they pay that 1% earnings tax, right? The 1% earnings tax from Major League Baseball players is a monstrous deal. Even at the Royals' paltry payroll, it's more than all of us working here if we were in Kansas City, Missouri.
Because the visitors pay it too.
The visitors pay it too. So, like, when A-Rod would come to town for 3 games, you divide A-Rod's, here's what he earned there. You know what I mean?
I had a conversation off the air with Will Perdue about what his taxes were like when he would do and how much money he spent to have his taxes prepared for him.
Right.
It ain't the same that you and I spend to have. Now he makes a lot more money,
right?
But the amount of money he spent to have all of his taxes done, it's unreal, because every single state and county that he plays in, along with the state that he lives in, along with the state that maybe his house is in, along with like all of these different things that he's got, that there's a tax that go along with all of those things. And the same thing when anybody comes here to Kansas City and plays at Jackson.
So if they put a stadium in North Kansas City, which is not Kansas City, it's its own little town, that's money that Kansas City loses. I don't think North Kansas City has a 1% earnings tax. Maybe someone can tell me if you work there they do. I don't believe they do. I know that in Missouri, Kansas, and St. Louis each have a 1% earnings tax. So if all of that money leaves the coffers of Kansas City, that would be a big deal, right? And for North Kansas City, just having more businesses and excitement and all that stuff. You come there and you buy something, you buy a ticket, a piece of the sales tax of the ticket that's all built in there goes to your municipalities and all that stuff. Right. So here's what I think. I think Clay County is a growing county and has grown a lot. I mean, you've lived in Jackson County in your life. You've lived up north. You live in Johnson County. Now you know about this city, but it is growing. And it doesn't look like it's slowing down growing. And Jackson County, if you go look at the data over the last 50 years, it's slightly growing. Here, sometimes if you go look by the 10-year increments, it actually decreases in population and then mostly increases 5 or 6% or something. But, I mean, the Northland, and Clay County in particular, is like twice as many people who live there than lived there when I was born. So it's a growing thing. There are more and more. I mean, Liberty's got 2 high schools now and probably will need 3 someday. You know what I mean? And north of the river on the Clay County side, like that's where Staley is and all that. Those didn't exist when we were kids. They just weren't part of the thing. So I think it's a growing area, and they're swinging for the fences with the baseball term here. They've got an area down there that is cool, that has, I'm sure, much cheaper land, which apparently some people already own.
Yeah.
Around here who have been shrewd, I guess. But there will still be a big fight here.
Yeah.
With Kansas City and Jackson County. These stadiums are in Jackson County right now, and they have a lease till 2031, but you can buy out of anything.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric Hosmer just got DFA'd the other day.
Right.
The Padres are going to pay him all his money. That's 3 teams ago. So there's a price to get out of any Jackson County lease, but the Royals do not want to lose. Jackson County does not want to lose the Royals. I know that much.
Well, you're right, and then it would become contentious if they do end up going with the Clay County proposal. And Jackson County has now, with Frank White putting out the statement of, they're under lease until through the 2030 season.
Yeah.
So, all of this stuff
going on. There's no stadium. They ain't building a stadium in 2 days either.
Right, but the Royals want to be in a stadium in 27 or 28.
Yeah.
And
if they ain't got anything on the ballot yet, so I'm smelling 28 or 29.
And if they want to have it in April of 24, then they probably need to start, doing some stuff, and that's where Clay County puts us out there, and it's to draw interest.
Would you think it's more likely that Clay County would be an easier yes vote, or Jackson County would be an easier yes vote for more tax dollars going to something?
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing Clay County.
I'm guessing Clay County because
what does Clay County have? I mean, what do they have that's a big thing? They have a lot of stuff, right? Like Worlds of Funds there and things like that, but they don't have something to say this is our thing.
Yep.
Like Wyandotte County didn't have anything 25 years ago. And Wyandotte County did it through bonds. They didn't do it through a sales tax.
Yeah.
And they got the Speedway, and they got the sporting park, and they have Monarchs, the old Community American Ballpark. So, I think Clay County would be more likely to be yes than there's a lot of money rolling through Jackson County right now on things.
I think Mayor Q's response was illuminating, and when he said a timely manner for the Royals, that he feels like the Royals are dragging their feet on this. But look, if they put it across the river, they put it downtown river, I'm going to go. As long as it's in Kansas City, great. If it's over on the Kansas side, whatever, I'm going to go. I would say the one thing that I think Royals fans could maybe take solace in that, people talking about would they move, whatever. Well, you've got 2 different areas in counties that are saying, no, we will keep the Royals here.
They got options here.
They got options here, not here or somewhere else. Thank you, Todd.
Choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Compensated dramatization.
I called Mike and his team after my wreck, and they got me $125,000.
Call me. I've got this. 816.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Drake hanging out and running the show today. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up an hour from now with KSHB 41, the sports director. We got Learn Funniest Best coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll talk with Kylie McDaniel coming up later on this hour from ESPN. He covers baseball, does a great job of that, covers prospects and the draft and everything along with that. We'll do that with Kylie McDaniel. Get his thoughts on the Royals system, some players there, and a quick primer as the Royals have the number 8 pick in the draft. And unlike previous years when it would be the June free agent draft and it would be earlier in June and it'd be like a couple of weeks away, it's on into July is the draft for Major League Baseball now. But a quick primer as to some of the players that may be there and with that number 8 pick for the Royals. And, of course, the lottery not helping the Royals out in the first time. There is a lottery. 913-912-4810. We welcome in Myron Metcalf from ESPN joining us here in the zone on this Monday. Myron, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
Good, man. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. I wish I was doing better when it comes to watching the conference finals. It has been quite the letdown in terms of entertainment factor from – man, these playoffs have been awesome until we get to this spot, which was we were hoping would be some really fun series, but 3-0 apiece. It feels like all the buildup in the playoffs and the postseason and the fun and the entertainment kind of went out the window and put a big sort of black cloud over the entertainment factor here.
Yeah, certainly I think unexpected for most people. Thought we'd have better action. I was actually at Game 6 of the Warriors-Lakers series in L.A. You know, there's just such like a wild atmosphere, and you kind of hope that would carry over into a more competitive series with Denver, but Denver's just on a different level. And then I think Miami just, you know, breaking the Celtics. I mean, that's been more surprising. Like, if you tell me the 1 seed in the West sweeps a team that started 2-10 and was in the play-in, was outside the play-in, I think as late as late February, okay. I mean, when you look at everything from that perspective, it's more about people doubting Denver than the Lakers struggling, in my opinion. But then Miami, Boston just quit last night, and that's been a really weird thing to watch. Joe Mazzulla has no answers. And you know he's a young coach because he's telling people he doesn't have the answers, which, I mean, why would you do that? So it's been a mess.
Yeah, and I kind of talked about that in the first hour today, Myron. I'm like, look, I like coaches being honest as much as anybody. I've also said that I allow coaches to sort of lie and bend the truth from time to time because, you know, it's part of the deal. It's part of the contract. And, you know, just that particular job. I was surprised at Joe Mazzulla with the not having any answers, or I didn't have this team ready to go for this game. Those were some surprising comments. I mean, it's one thing to be a younger coach and say, look, I'm going to have my players back. It's not my players' fault. It's my fault. I didn't have them ready to go versus, look, the Heat are a really good team, and they played phenomenal. Yeah. And you know what? They hit 19 threes today. You know, it's one of those things where when a team's playing like that in this atmosphere, it's going to take a whole lot. And, yeah, I wish we would have played better basketball. But the series isn't over. It's going to be a one-game series from here on out. But I didn't have them ready to play, and I don't really know what the answers are, and we'll see about the locker room if they're still behind me. It's an odd press conference.
We'll see if he's back in the locker room for Game 4 because he seemed like a dude who had already booked his trip to Cancun or wherever he's going to clear his head, man. Like, and again, we get on him. He's a young coach. Like, he was sort of thrown into this situation. Yeah. But at the end of the day, man, you got a couple of players who are about to get $600+ million combined. You can't lose to a playing team. You can't get swept by them at least.
I understand why the Nuggets are beating the Lakers because I think the Nuggets are going to win the championship. But how did it happen to where, you know, the Celtics are down 0-3 to this Heat team and, you know, a team that was the 8th seed, a team that had to win the second of the play-in game to even get into the playoffs and are now here a game away from going to the NBA Finals. You know, the Celtics team, they were supposed to be in a position to where they were going to be in the NBA Finals and taking on the Lakers or Nuggets once it was the Heat. And now it's been almost an embarrassment of how they played and quitting. How did we get to this point to where this Heat team is not only winning but is just dominating and embarrassing in Game 3 the Celtics team?
I mean, I think part of it is, again, like a lot of times we don't really watch the regular season or watch trends in the regular season, and then we're surprised when those trends show up in the postseason. I mean, the Celtics were an average team at home. Any team that has a lukewarm record at home, you should have a lot of questions about. But we didn't because they had Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So we were like, all right, yeah, they got a young coach. You know, yeah, they have some things to figure out. But overall, you know, this is a team that has two superstars. They'll figure it out. But the truth is you don't figure it out in the postseason. You usually do what you did in the regular season. The Golden State Warriors couldn't win on the road during the regular season. Guess what? They couldn't win on the road in the playoffs. So I think part of it is that. I think the other element is I don't think Boston was prepared for Miami. I mean, I think this is a team that saw the Bucks go down and thought, wow, the title is ours. They saw the Warriors go down and they thought, wow, it's all shaping up for us. And they got caught, I think, being kind of overwhelmed by Jimmy Butler and his will to win. They just have a better team. Everybody knows the role with Miami. You've had Jaylen Brown hot and cold. You've had Jason Tatum kind of go entire quarters where he's missing. And they don't really have a third guy consistently to turn to, whereas Miami has like 7 guys right now who've all kind of taken their turns putting up big numbers for that team. But again, like this is why Joe Mazzulla is going to go back to being an assistant somewhere next year because despite all that, you can't get swept by a playing team and expect to keep your gear.
The Myron Metcalf is our guest. Jimmy Butler is a fascinating story and a fascinating career in where the different roads have taken him from JUCO to Marquette to, Chicago and Minnesota and Philly and Miami and all of these different things. And now an opportunity to play in the NBA Finals yet again because they were in the NBA Finals in the bubble. It's fascinating with Jimmy Butler to me because when he joined the Miami Heat, I didn't think, well, now the Heat are going to go to a couple of NBA Finals, and now that they've got Jimmy Butler. But sort of his mentality, his personality has been a big reason why the Heat are in this position. Spoelstra is a damn fine coach, too. But during the regular season, Jimmy Butler has 10 games where he scored 35 or more points since he joined the Heat, which is the 36th most in the NBA. With Fred VanVleet and Terry Rozier and Jimmy Butler, all was sitting there at 10. In the playoffs in that time, since he's been with the Heat, he leads the NBA in 35-plus point games with 13 of them. He's got 13 in the playoffs since he's been a member of the Heat and 10 in all of the regular season games. There's something about Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. There's something about different guys that step up in the playoffs. Locally, I've compared him to Frank Clark, who's just sort of been generic during the regular season. And since he joined the Chiefs, he has the most postseason sacks, more than Nick Bosa in the postseason, which is crazy to think about. But what it is about that Jimmy Butler that all of a sudden, the playoffs happen. I know he only had 16 last night, but the playoffs happen, and he's just sort of a guy that is unstoppable. And has been a guy that just refuses to lose and will carry a team on his shoulders.
I mean, I think playoff Jimmy is a real thing.
It is.
I think the weird thing about Miami is, they haven't had a healthy stretch with him. Like, they haven't had a stretch. Like, Miami's gotten healthy late, but they haven't had a stretch where, everybody's healthy in the regular season. So they've had only a handful of games overall where Jimmy, Bam, everybody. Now, obviously, Tyler Herro's been injured. So I do think that's part of it, too. I mean, he's had some injury issues, and then when he's back, he hasn't had a team at full strength. But whenever they get into the postseason at full strength, he just kind of takes it up to another level. I just also think, if you tell Jimmy Butler that he has to be the best player on the floor in this moment, he will be, And I think that's just a gift that he has. I mean, he did it with Giannis on the floor, and then he went and did it again in the series after that, where obviously the Knicks have Jalen Brunson and a bunch of other talented players, and now he's doing it again with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown set to make more than $600 million combined after both making all NBA teams. So I don't know. I just know if he gets a championship, however you want to rate him, he's one of the greats. If he takes his Miami team to a championship. And Eric Spoelstra should also be talked about as one of the greats. To me, who's been a better coach in the last 15 years? Not Pop after Tim Duncan. You can make the case that Steve Kerr has just had 3 or 4 of the most talented players in NBA history. Spoelstra's doing this with, like, Jimmy Butler and various members of the All-East region team from 2014 to 2018, essentially, right? Like, nobody knows these guys. So I think those two together, and then give Pat Riley credit, too. Pat Riley left New York, and it literally changed the franchise, and the Heat culture is real because of him. So I think it's those 3 guys who kind of elevate Jimmy and put him in this position in this moment.
How many more games do you think in the Western Conference? Do the Lakers get one tonight to force a Game 5, or is this one of those to where the Nuggets are just freaking good? I mean, they've got Jokic, who is phenomenal, and Jamal Murray is maybe the player left in the playoffs that has that Steph or Damian Lillard where he can just drop 37 or 4. I know we're talking about Jimmy Butler and how good he is, but Butler does it so many different ways. Jamal Murray just has that Steph. I'll pull up from 40 feet and knock it down. It doesn't matter, and just gets so incredibly hot. The fourth quarter and the first half of fourth quarter of Game 2, first half of Game 3, in those 3 quarters, Jamal Murray had 54 points that he scored against the Lakers. And how many of those were guarded shots and pull-ups and step-backs? He's been phenomenal. Do the Lakers have anything for the Nuggets, or is this just one of those to where that team is so well constructed and the Lakers are, the 7 seed and have been trying to even make the playoffs most of the year, and this Nuggets team has been just chugging along as the number 1 seed?
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers might be able to offer them, like, advice or something about going, to the championship and win. I don't think they have anything else. Like, Denver's the number 1 seed. And, again, we ignore those things. Like, we're very good in our industry at deciding that top seeds aren't top seeds. And I don't know, it's every sport.
Yeah.
Every sport we just make a decision that, like, the team that has been the best team over the course of the entire season, for some reason that's not going to matter in the postseason. We just do that because I think it's more fun that way. So we talked about, what if the Clippers get healthy? What if Paul George comes back? The Lakers start 2-10. They go on their run. The Warriors, they get healthy. Ja Morant post-suspension, could they be a threat? Do the Pelicans get Zion back at some point and kind of become a team that you don't want to deal with? Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns is back. So there were all these storylines in the West that made it easy to overlook the team that had legitimately been the best team in the NBA for 82 games. So I think a lot of it's on us.
Yeah.
Also, when you play in Denver, it's not a sexy market. There are a lot of people who are saying, I never saw Jokic, and I don't know how that's real. He's a 2-time MVP. How did you not see him? But they're not playing on national TV every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I do think there's a factor of that as well. But Jamal Murray's elite when healthy. Michael Porter Jr., Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Bruce Brown. They have role players who would be bigger stars in other markets. And this is what should scare the NBA. Jamal Murray, under contract for the next 3 years at about $33 million a year. That's a $50 million a year player, honestly, who's going to be making about $17 million less than what he's worth, which is going to help Denver continue to build around him and Jokic. And this could be a team where you go, you got to get through Denver for the next 3 to 4 years to compete for a championship.
I think, and if I'm guessing, I think that will be the case. I'd said when the Lakers and Golden State were going back and forth, I said, whoever wins, it's a cool story because these are 2 teams that mid or at least players with LeBron and Steph and Clay and Draymond and that. But these 2 sort of characters, Warriors and then LeBron, like we've had this rivalry that we've seen. I'm like, yeah, it's cool from drama there, but the winner of this one is just setting up to lose in 5 or 6 games to the Nuggets. It doesn't even matter who wins this one. The Nuggets are winning in 5 or 6, and I picked the Nuggets in 6 because it's really easy to go out on a limb, Myron, to take the better team and the most likely result of games in a series of 6. Nailed it.
Yeah.
But the reason I picked 6 is I said I think the Nuggets will win in 5, but there might be a game where LeBron just goes crazy and Anthony Davis goes crazy and they sort of steal one. But I think stealing one now would make it 5. You know what I mean? Like that's what I feel with this series, that the Nuggets are that much better. So Maybe that'll be tonight. I guess it'll have to be tonight if they're going to.
Yeah.
So to force a Game 5, it's crazy just to force a Game 5 with these series. So
yeah, they're going to get swept. It'll be a sweep.
I think so too.
It's over.
I think so too. Myron Metcalf from ESPN is our guest. I want to talk about the transfer portal with you. We haven't talked since some of the news have come out with some of these bigger names. What does Hunter Dickinson do for KU? Are they now the number one team? Are they, in your mind, the team to beat for cutting down the nets in the Final Four? Adding him as opposed to him going to Kentucky or Nova or wherever else he would have ended up, or Maryland. What does Hunter Dickinson mean to KU?
It means some accountants are going to get some new work because his NIL deal certainly is going to be, put him in a different category. I think Duke and Kansas, you can pick. I mean, I go back and forth, right? Like, I think Jeremy Roach coming back, Kyle Filipowski, that's a big deal, for Duke and what they have coming in. But then, I always tell people one-and-done teams or young teams don't usually win championships in our sport. So, I mean, you add Hunter Dickinson, and it really changes everything. I mean, you could run 5 out with Jalen Wilson, but, like, for a 7-footer to be a threat from the three-point line and to have sort of his mobility and tenacity around the rim, I think it's going to me, it's shaping up like it's Kansas and Duke, and then there's a gap between the next tier of teams. I think that's how good those two teams are. And to me, he gives to me Bill Self maybe his most versatile big man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the other guys he's had. He's obviously had some really, really talented post players. He's had some really talented guys who, both ends of the floor were dangerous. I don't think he's ever had a guy like this who could stretch the floor and could just really change everything from a matchup perspective. I mean, you got, to me, the best, one of the 2 or 3 best bigs, depending on who comes back in America, and you got this fleet of guards who are just going to be really incredible. And then KJ, to me, is the guy where you're like, what do you do with him? How do you match up against Hunter Dickinson, right, who might stretch you to the three-point line? You got these guards who are going to be so quick and efficient. And then you got a dude in KJ who I think is going to be a breakout player. Like, he's just going to be impossible to deal with because you can't guard those 5 guys straight up. So Kansas will be different, man. I think Bill Self is going to have a lot of fun. And
we'll see what happens this year. But right now, as we look at it, is Hunter Dickinson the most impactful of the transfer portal players that we've seen with the immediate transfer eligibility, and not just like the grad transfer, but is he the biggest one that has been out there and the biggest fish to land for anybody that Kansas ended up getting?
Maybe ever, right? One of the biggest ever, I would say, in the transfer portal era. Like, I don't think there's been anybody who's been added to a team where you said, okay, now they're going to win a championship. You know what I mean? There have been some really good players, but most of those players were complementary to what those teams already had. I mean, this is a dude where you go, he might be the guy, I just think if you told Bill Self that he was going to be able to get a guy to play like a real 5-out. Now, they've done that a lot.
Right.
But there's usually a big in there that's not really a threat. There's usually a guy in there where you're like, okay, you can play that way, but everybody knows your 5 isn't hitting shots from out there. Probably not going to even take them. Like, this dude legitimately is a guy you got to guard out to the three-point line. And I think that's just going to make it so difficult to really face them and to really scheme for that, because that'll be a unique – I don't think any team in America can play that the way that Kansas can, man. So Hunter's the real dude. I did a bunch of Michigan games for TV, I think 5 or 6 last year, so I was around him a lot. He's also a trash talker. Like, he's a brash dude, man. Like, he is take me or leave me. But when he rides with you, he's all in. So opposing teams are going to hate him. But I think Kansas fans will love him.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Self, he had Christian Brown, so now he can have Hunter Dickinson, just the trash talkers, the brash players.
Christian Brown is that dude, basically.
There we go. Myron Metcalf from ESPN is our guest. You mentioned Michigan, and this is one that was interesting. Caleb Love is now back in the transfer portal, is available. He had committed to Michigan, and now there's some transcript issues from North Carolina to Michigan. He's available again. I don't know that I remember a high-profile recruitment that ended up being he can't go to that school because of a transcript and some credits. Is that an indication of how late Michigan got into the game? That it felt like Missouri, Indiana, and then all of a sudden Michigan came out of nowhere, and then he commits to Michigan, and now it's like, okay, well, maybe his credits and all the transcript and everything wasn't fully figured out, and now he's back on the open market again.
It's a mess no matter how you look at it. I mean, I don't know if it's about how late they got in. It's somebody who's trying to rush the process, you know? You know, we can talk NIL and transfer portal all we want. Like, the academics still matter. So I just don't know how you could get to a position where you didn't at least have some sort of preliminary approval from compliance and the powers that be that this was going to work. I think that's the weird thing to me. It's like, who rushed this through to be like, no, he's good, without that being an official thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, to me, is a part of it. Like, in the scramble to get Caleb Love, it's like, no, we got you, but then Caleb Love ain't got you because the academics aren't going to work, especially at a school like Michigan, which is a really good school. It's just a bad look for Juwan. I mean, I don't know if there's any other way to look at it. Like, it's a really bad look for Juwan, who's dealt with a lot of bad looks this offseason. His best player left. His son obviously is in a lot of going to the NBA. They haven't brought back a lot of guys. They've lost a lot of talent. It's a really, really bad look because that shouldn't happen at that level of the sport to where you don't have someone kind of checking everything to make sure that you're not going to be embarrassed when it's all said and done.
Last one for you, Myron Metcalf from ESPN. Is Victor Wembanyama the real deal? Is he a novelty? Is he a guy that we see highlights of because he's playing over in France? Or is this a guy that if he had played a year in college, we'd be talking about him on a different level of why he's the number one pick?
Yeah, I mean, I saw him in Vegas, and I was at that showcase with him versus the G League guys. He's real, man. I watched him make 7 threes in the second half, but not like Jokic and Embiid threes, like, as he's moving, like Steph Curry, coming off the high screen, hitting them in transition like a guard. He walks like a guard. I mean, he moves. He doesn't move like that lanky 7-footer. Like, all 7-footers have some of that.
Yeah.
That kind of lanky walk. He doesn't have that, man. That dude walks like a 6'3" guard. I've never seen anybody like him. I don't think anyone has seen anybody like him. So I think if he stays healthy, yeah, Victor Wembanyama is going to be everything. He didn't play college, so that always makes people go, well, how good is he?
Mm-hmm.
There have been obviously a lot of international duds, guys who come over here and they haven't lived up to the hype. I don't think that's him, man. Like, I think that dude is everything and some, and will really revolutionize the position if he stays healthy, because there's just nobody that exists. No one before him, no one currently who's ever played that way. But you got to stay healthy. Also, the LeBron stuff, like, who was more hyped, him versus LeBron? Without social media, LeBron was on national TV in 10th grade. Like, stop comparing LeBron to Victor Wembanyama. People knew LeBron in high school, sophomore year. Victor Wembanyama is sort of a new guy that people are getting to know.
Yeah, and the whole college thing too. Like, I was talking about this on Friday. Like, looking at once the lottery came out, it's like, all right, the draft starts at pick number 2. Is it going to be Brandon Miller or is it going to be Scoot Henderson? And I'm like, you know what? If you just ask like the average a basketball fan, like, hey, who's Brandon Miller? You might be able to figure it out because of what's going on with Alabama and playing in college, and then say, hey, who's Scoot Henderson? I don't know, 1964, NBA player, that guard.
Yeah, no idea.
Scoot Henderson, I don't know. Did he play second base for the Dodgers? I'm not sure who Scoot Henderson is. But you know what? If he played his last year, and if he had played at Auburn, I think we'd know who Scoot Henderson is.
He told me he would have played college if NIL would have been available. I mean, he made it sound like he would have when I talked to him. So I think a lot of those guys are going to start playing college, and they won't be in the G League or Overtime Elite with NIL.
Which I'm totally okay with. Give more pub and more fun with the college side of it, because I would have liked to seen watched Scoot in college just to see what his game would look like.
Yeah, he's real.
Because I know Brandon Miller's game. I know what it looks like. I can project it and think what he looks like in the NBA. But Victor Wembanyama, not real. And I'll get the name right eventually. Not really. Hey, you know what? Wembanyama. It's the Yama that gets me, because I've been saying Yana for so long. Wembanyama. So
we got Kristaps Porzingis. We're going to be okay.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We'll figure it all out. We'll get there.
That's true. It's Myron Metcalf from ESPN. Myron, you're the man as always. Really appreciate the time, brother. Enjoy what's left of the conference finals and then certainly the NBA finals, and we'll talk down the road. Thank you, Myron. Appreciate it.
That sounds good.
Absolutely. There's Myron Metcalf from ESPN. Does a great job. You hear him on the weekends as well on ESPN Radio right here on Sports Radio 810. Does a great job on the Sundays. And obviously with college basketball, with the NBA and NBA draft, and talks a lot of NFL too, man. A lot of football when it comes to those Sunday shows. So love talking with Myron Metcalf. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, have a quick segment, and then we'll hang out with Kylie McDaniel coming up later on this hour. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
Do you struggle with pain, anxiety, sleep, or lack of energy? It's time for you to talk with CBD American Shaman's expert consultants about the power of high-quality hemp oil. And while supplies last, you can stop by your local CBD American Shaman location today to pick up the limited autographed Tim Grunhardt's book, View from the Center. While you're there, pick up some free samples, and they even have great products for your pets. CBD American Shaman. Life is better with the feather.
Hey guys, Matt Coker here from West Coast Men's Health to let you know that you don't have to take Viagra for the rest of your life. Acoustic wave therapy has changed the game. Trust me, I've seen guys come in who have completely given up, only to see them back in the game after going through our treatment program. So call West Coast Men's Health today.
Call 913-243-3200. That's 913-243-3200. 913-243-3200. Online at westcoastmenshealth.com.
Kansas City, there's no doubt that we had the best draft party ever. We represented our hometown by showing the football world how to throw a great party. Thanks, Kansas City, for showing our visiting fans respect and showing true class. Do you know who else is in a class of their own? Roberts Robinson Chevrolet Buick GMC. For over 50 years, they've been taking care of Kansas City the good old-fashioned way by keeping it classy. All month long, you get 1.9% APR on Chevy Silverado trucks or Blazers, Equinoxes, and Trailblazer SUVs. How about no payment for 90 days? That's how they treat qualified buyers. How about GMCs with low APR starting at 1.9% on Sierra trucks and 1.9% on Terrain SUVs? Roberts Robinson also offers a lifetime warranty for free with new vehicles, saving you thousands. Go to robertsrobinson.com to see over 100 vehicles online or check us out on Facebook at Roberts Robinson and tell them that Grunny sent ya.
Hi, Kansas City. Kevin Harlan here. I know being a champion means you're a leader in your field, and you always rise above your competition. That's why, when summer temperatures get extreme, our house has a Champion premium system that keeps my family comfortable and cool. Get peak performance in your home by finding a local Champion dealer at championhomecomfort.com. And don't forget to ask about our free 10-year parts and labor warranty. Always leading, never compromising. championhomecomfort.com.
I'm McCall with Lee Summit Subaru, and it's our Summer Lovin' event. This summer, come to Lee Summit Subaru and find out why we're Google's highest review rated and locally owned Subaru retailer in Kansas.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll talk some baseball with Kiley McDaniel. Not the big league club because, what's the point? But we will talk about his piece that he wrote at ESPN of the best players in baseball ages 16 to 25, top 10 players at each age, and the singular player for the Royals that shows up. There were 3 names on that list that were Royals. Bobby Witt Jr., the 3 names that showed up on that list that were Kansas City Royals. We'll talk with Kiley McDaniel about that coming up in the next segment. No word on whether or not Chris Jones has made it to the voluntary OTAs today, which, as I've said, doesn't really bother me one way or another if he shows up, if he doesn't show up, just simply because he didn't show up in 2019. It's voluntary. It's not like they will be getting fined. And I think he'll still remember how to play football if he doesn't show up to the voluntary. The only story to me is if he does show up. So we've talked about that a couple of times. But the debate rages on as to whether or not the Chiefs should trade or sign Chris Jones. For whatever reason, that debate still continues, which it's fine. Whatever. People can have those conversations. They can have that debate. Yeah. We'll see what the Chiefs would be able to get for Chris Jones. Great. I mean, there would be some cap space there, but put me in the camp who is vehemently against trading Chris Jones, pay him the money. These defensive tackles, it's so crazy. Like, we talk about defensive ends and, how great these game-wrecking defensive ends are. One of the most difficult things to find in all of football is besides obviously a franchise-changing quarterback, is an impactful interior defensive lineman. I mean, teams try to find that in the draft all the time, which is one of the big surprises as to what the defensive tackle market has done this offseason, which is great for the Chiefs, by the way, because it makes it more reasonable with whatever money they end up paying him. It's not like, you've got Jeffrey Simmons that's making like $27, $28, $29 million every year in his new contract, so that's great that isn't the case. But this is a position that it seems like is incredibly difficult to find, that when you have that guy, you might want to hold on to him. And Chris Jones is at the top of his game. And to me, there's no reason to not give him the 3-year extension, because you kind of traded Tyreek Hill to have the flexibility to do this. You didn't trade Tyreek Hill as a boilerplate so that you can go, well, now we're just going to trade everybody that's really good and not pay him that money. You can pay top-end guys. Where you get in trouble, where you start to feel like you've lost the plot, is when you're paying good players great player money. They let Charvarius Ward walk. That was the right move. Juan Thornhill, good player. They drafted Brian Cook, signed Mike Edwards. They let Juan Thornhill walk to the Browns. You don't sign the good players to great player contracts and then pay Patrick Mahomes and think you can then go and pay Chris Jones and feel perfectly fine. You can pay the quarterback the high-end money and still have 2, 3, 4 contracts that are high-end. It's a matter of avoiding good players being one of those contracts. If you've got those great players that are earning whatever the value is, which Chris Jones would do, those are guys you can pay. It's not like, well, you got Patrick Mahomes, so now nobody can make high-end money. No, you can do that, and the salary cap continues to increase and all of that stuff. So I'm not sure why it keeps getting brought back up. I can't imagine the Chiefs would be in the market of trading Chris Jones, just simply because where's the Patrick Mahomes on the defense? He ain't Tyreek Hill. It's not the Tyreek Hill trade, and therefore you can just do that all over again. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk with Kiley McDaniel from ESPN and get his thoughts on the farm system, some prospects, an early primer on the Major League Baseball draft, and his piece of all the best players from ages 16 to 25 and Royals players not on it. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810 WA.
way to protect your life and your loved ones' hearts is to buckle up.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. We continue rolling along on this Monday edition. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director. He will be our guest. We'll talk with Kylie McDaniel right now from ESPN. Does a great job as an MLB baseball insider and the covering the future of baseball, really, with the minor leagues, the draft, some things like that. Joining us here in the zone. Kylie, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. I loved the concept of the ranking the best players and who you would want on your team from ages 16 through 25. How long did that take to come up with and look at? Because when you're talking about players that are ages 16 and 17, then you're starting to get into the real minutia of who the future stars are that aren't even drafted or are just signing some international free agent deals with these teams.
Yeah, I mean, if you've read my stuff for a while, you know I love to get lost in the minutia,
Yeah.
and I think like most people that are big fans of like the prospect area, whether they like to follow the draft or go deep in fantasy leagues or collect baseball cards or their kids on the circuit or whatever, they'll be able to tell you who the top 3 or 4 guys are. And so at some level, like bouncing around Twitter and a couple different articles, you could probably make seemingly about the same list I have for 19, 20-year-olds because they're all in, low A or high A or got drafted somewhere or got a huge bonus or they're, somewhat famous on, the top 100s every winter. And I noticed it was very difficult. The reason I sort of came up with the concept is when you get into the area that I sort of specialize in, that like ages 17 through 21,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at age 17 for best international players, they have signed and have played in instructs but haven't played an official game yet and maybe just played in the DSL, which is, in some ways below high school, in some ways, better than some SEC. And then that's also like high school players that, are a year away from getting drafted. They're very far away, but you may have seen him once or twice. And every now and then a guy you see as a sophomore in high school, like Bobby Witt Jr., ends up being as good as he looks the first time. And sometimes they're not as good upon further inspection. And then you have guys that are like freshmen in college that weren't paid out of high school, like Ethan Petrie at South Carolina, who now looks like he should have gotten $1.5 million. And he didn't get offered more than $500K. And so, like, at that age, there's a lot of stuff happening year to year because they're so young and still developing and still getting better. But they're also in so many different contexts. Like, the best players in the KBO are 18 or 19, and that's, like, double A. So it's just, like, so different and so difficult to compare them that since my job is basically to keep track of all those different pools of players,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is a good way to take all of these random spreadsheets that my wife laughs at when I pull out to keep track of guys after I get off a phone call and put them all in one place so people can kind of understand the way I think about it.
That's amazing. Yes, all the different spreadsheets. How do I want to put this into in an actual story? The one player for the Royals that did make the list out of all of the players you mentioned on your that you'd have on your team with these different age groups is Bobby Witt Jr., the third pick for the born in the year 2000 behind Julio Rodriguez and Corbin Carroll. We've talked about Bobby Witt, you and I have a couple of times, whether it's in the draft or post-draft and what he would be in Major League Baseball. He's played 197 games now and has almost 1,000 plate appearances. So you get to the point of he's got some seasoning to his game and going to turn 23 here pretty soon. What do you make of what we've seen from Bobby Witt Jr. so far? Like, he's got the 30-30 potential. I mean, he had 30 stolen bases and 20 home runs a year ago. So he's got that potential to be able to be that guy. But he's getting on base this year at 267. He's got a career on base percentage sub 290. He swings at a lot of bad pitches. Is he going to be a guy that that part of his game will get figured out and can stay at shortstop with his improved defense? And is he playing at the majors the way that maybe you thought when he was the number 2 pick in the draft?
Yeah, I mentioned I'd seen him, I want to say age 15, standing out, playing against kids 2 years older than him. You'll hear this sometimes with guys like Ronald Acuna when he got like left back in AAA. He was so physically talented that AAA could not challenge him. Like, he wasn't forced to improve his pitch selection because he could still hit bad pitches in AAA as like a teenager, which is just wild to think about. And Bobby Witt was the same way. That like when he was 15 playing 17, 18-year-olds, it was just like, oh, he's like still probably the best guy in the field. and is obviously like years behind him in physical development. And you could early on, he was hitting balls over 100 miles an hour with a wood bat, which is just insane to think about as well. The sort of concern once scouts sort of drilled down at age 17, 18 going into his draft year was always kind of like Trevor Story, which is a shorthand for big kid, great athlete, great kid, can play defense, has power, flashes all the physical tools, but you wonder, is the polish around the defense going to be there, which I think it has been, and is the polish around pitch selection going to be there? And that's the part that hasn't come yet, which is often the thing that if it doesn't come pretty quickly, I think of the metaphor I always use is sort of like cement, that once you get a certain amount of games under your belt, that then the cement has dried and your pitch selection is just what it is. One great example of that is Carl Crawford, where he played 3 sports in high school, and so his cement didn't dry until he basically got to the big leagues because he just didn't have that many reps until he got to AA, AAA big leagues, and he was able to get it to a point where it was good enough to get to his tools. Witt, I think the cement may have dried just because he's been a sort of a baseball-only tons of reps guy since back when I was seeing him like 6-7 years ago. And I think he's just going to be a guy that always swings a little more than you want him to and doesn't quite get all the way to that upside, which is, say 270 with 30 to 40 homers. But there's still plenty of room to be 250 with 25 homers and playing an above-average shortstop and being a plus on the bases. And then maybe he randomly gives you that 1 year where he hits 40 and just really goes off, which, we're talking about a guy that is either the 40th best player in baseball or the 12th best guy in baseball. Like, it's like a pretty small margin, but it's obviously meaningful when it's like perennial all-star versus very good guy that gets like all-star votes every year. That's kind of the question that was there in the draft at AA early in his career last year in the big leagues, and it's still kind of the question now. And he is such an outlier in terms of physical ability. It's hard to say, well, he hasn't figured it out by now, he's not going to figure it out. He's just sort of an outlier in every way. So I'm going to give him a little more time, but that seems to be the concern. Is he ever going to completely put it together or just be a really good player that gets to like 80% of that full upside?
Yeah, his swing and miss percentage is the same as last year, which is a little disappointing for him. And unlike Trevor Story, Trevor Story's on-base percentage was pretty good and even really good at times, and Witt's just has not been that. So hopefully that part will come around. His defense has certainly improved at shortstop, so we'll see from that standpoint. One of the things, Kylie McDaniel's our guest, one of the things that I was really searching for as somebody that covers the Royals is going through the story to see if there are any other Kansas City Royals on the list, because it is pretty far removed for the Royals in rebuilding their farm system from when they traded a lot of players in 2014 and 15 and even 16 to go for it. And they've got a World Series to show for it. They've got 2 different American League pennants to show for it, which is great because those things stay up there forever. And so they have tried to replenish since then. And the great part about this that you wrote was it's not just focusing on the farm system where it's like, well, yeah, but the Royals are going to be down here because they graduated a number of players from the farm system. These are guys are just the age that they are. I was surprised that, and some of that is guys who graduated out of the age that you're talking about, 16 to 25. But, looking through there, not seeing Royals players in the farm system or younger guys, and essentially just being Bobby Witt Jr. when they have had, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 to try to replenish the system and get younger, really good players.
Yeah, I would say to sort of some of what you said is they did that sort of full reset rebuild under Dayton Moore. It maybe took a year or two longer than you were hoping it was, but they got there. Obviously, you got all the stuff you wanted. You got multiple World Series appearances. You got the title. I think we could all look back and say, like, maybe he held on to some of those guys a little too long, handed out a couple too many big contracts, which sort of made it to where they had to do another reset. And this reset is also going a little slower than you'd like. If all the guys get there and become what they're supposed to be, then it can work. So it's not like this is a failure or anything. But to your point, the only other guy that I really thought about was Vinny Pasquantino, who actually is just too old to make the list by a handful of months. But even he, I don't think, would have made it because I think there's a lot of, to use scouting parlance, a lot of 50s and 55s, which would be average everyday players and slightly above average everyday players. That's kind of what they've gotten out of the last couple of years of the draft, where there's been a lot of like seemingly safe college starters that have become like middle to back end guys. There's some sort of shot in the dark high school upside guys that haven't proven it, haven't had that breakthrough yet, but like could. But also every team has like 3 or 4 of those guys, and the Royals might have a couple extra of them. The international program has been like good, but not great. Hasn't given you that guy. in the last couple of years, Michael Garcia might be the one to sort of come through that, but Eric Pena and some other guys haven't been quite what you're hoping. Sully Matias looked like he might have been that guy, and it sort of fizzled a little bit. So there's been a little bit of bad luck, and I think the Braves have been lucky and good at the same time over the last few years, turning later picks and sort of unheralded guys into stars. And I think the Royals have been a little unlucky, and they also fall into a bucket with, say, San Diego and a couple other teams like Texas, maybe Miami, that approach the draft and player development international from an old school point of view. Obviously, the Padres have had great results this entire time under A.J. Preller with that point of view. The White Sox, the Royals, the Marlins, some of these teams aren't quite getting those results. So it then becomes easy from the outside to say, why don't you get up to date, you can go with a more analytical point of view, that kind of thing. But there's also a bunch of teams that are at that far end of the other end of the spectrum that are also getting kind of ordinary results. Really the answer is, how do you execute better? The way that you do it doesn't really matter.
Does it, it's funny you mentioned the old school. This will be J.J. Piccolo's first draft as the general manager, and Quatraro, and sort of that change over to a more analytical thought process that, John Sherman had talked about when they made the move from Dayton Moore to J.J. Piccolo, of wanting more of the information to help make some decisions, not be the only indicator, but you know what, more information is better, and it can help you make the decision. It doesn't make the decision for you. And so I'll be interested to see what the Royals do now moving forward in this draft and the next couple, because there have been some things that have left a lot to be desired with the Asa Lacy. That's just been a disaster for this Royals team. Mazzucato is pitching better and is striking some guys out. Gavin Cross, thank goodness, is starting to hit the ball, because that was looking like a oh no, because he was supposed to be a safe pick, right? This guy is going to hit, and he hadn't, but now he's just turned it on over the last week. He's got 4 home runs in the last week, which is good, because he should be hitting well against that level of baseball. But I wonder what change there might be for J.J. Piccolo and this new regime of wanting to think more analytically.
Yeah, I don't know if the essentially having Dayton walking out the door and then all the same people still being there, and so the point of view is obviously going to be a little bit different with a different guy in the chair, but it's a lot of the same people that were sort of the number 2 and number 3 are now the number 1 and the number 2. So I don't think it is perceived that it is going to be much different of because you could talk about we're going to integrate this stuff more. Where rubber meets the road, you're involved in a lot of those decisions that are seen as sort of old school, and a player development system that is seen as sort of old school, which isn't bad. It's just that's the sort of style with which they're doing it. This year, I think, is especially an interesting draft because it's generally seen as a 5-player draft. Maybe some people would say there's a cutoff at 3, but I think the top tier of 5 guys, which is the 2 kids at LSU, Wyatt Langford at Florida, and then 2 high school hitters in Walker Jenkins and Max Clark. If you're picking 5th, which the Twins are, it's a great year to be 5th because then the pick is just made for you. Some guy gets there, you take him, you give him a slot, it's easy. Then 6, 7, 8, where the Royals are at 8, is where it gets tricky because then you've got that next cut is 6 to 8 players, and so you're not going to get the top of that group probably. Probably get picked ahead of you, and you got to sort through those leftovers or maybe drop down like they did in that Mazzucato year to that tier below, save some money and spread it out. And I think that group, which includes 2 pitchers in Chase Dolander at Tennessee and Rhett Lauder at Wake Forest, that is the sort of college pitcher that they have looked to of recent vintage, and that could be the guy they're looking at. There's also some guys that are perceived as safe, good chance to be an everyday player, position players in college. Would be Jacob Gonzalez, a shortstop at Ole Miss, Enrique Bradfield, 80 runner, center fielder at Vanderbilt, Jacob Wilson, remember Pirates shortstop Jack Wilson, it's his son at Grand Canyon.
Wow.
Those 3 guys are seen as
his son.
Yes.
Oh my God. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
It makes us all feel old. I mean, last year with the sons of Carl Crawford and Matt Holliday, I'm in my 30s and I feel old now. I remember watching those guys.
Yeah.
But those guys are seen as likely to be big leaguers, but maybe not stars. So you've got, and then you've got 6, 7 high school players you could justify depending on how different teams feel that could go into that group. So basically everything, and there's also a high school pitcher, Noble Meyer. So there's a little bit of everything available. There is full slot. There's maybe a little bit over. There's way under. Everything's available. So I think this will tell us a lot about if JJ's approach will be different than Dayton Moore's because they can kind of do anything here. It is not a pick that is made for them.
Well, it's perfect that you say there's really 1 through 5 that's great, and the first year they institute the lottery, the Royals would have had the number 1 pick or the number 5 pick without the lottery. Instead, they've got the number 8 pick with the lottery. So fantastic. That is awesome. Kiley McDaniel from ESPN. Kiley, you're the man. Really appreciate the time. Love the work there at ESPN, and Would love to catch up when we get closer to the Major League Baseball draft here in a couple of months. Thank you for the time today. I appreciate it.
Yep, well, mock draft's coming next week, so
Awesome.
I'll have a steady flow of info.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you, Kylie. Appreciate it, man.
Yep.
Absolutely. There's Kyler McDaniel. Great stuff from him. ESPN. So much information. Love talking with him about all the different younger guys, prospects, and things like that. How about, the only other guy he had considered in the Royals in the top 10 of all the different ages was Vinny Pasquantino, who had graduated out because he's 26 now. So he did 16 to 25, 16-year-olds to 25-year-olds. But it said, even if that was the case, he probably wouldn't have put him in the top 10. Might have been an honorable mention with that as if he was a 25-year-old or whatever. So interesting. Boy, love to hear it. This is a draft to where 1 through 5. You got 5 like surefire guys, and if you're picking 5th, the pick has been made for you. Whoever's there from these top 5 guys. Don't worry, the Royals had the 5th worst record. They'll be picking 5th. Except they have a lottery where now they're picking 8th. Cool. Mick Schaefer next.
If you've been dreaming of a new outdoor living area for your family to enjoy all year long, Summit Lawn and Lean.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thank you to Myron Metcalf and Kyler McDaniel in the previous hour joining us from ESPN, talking some NBA, some college basketball transfer, a little bit of draft, and then some Major League Baseball prospects and Major League Baseball draft. And, just getting all of that taken care of from ESPN with Myron Metcalf and also Kyler McDaniel. Todd Lebo hung out with us the first couple of hours of the show today as a weekend of not a whole lot of drama or sports craziness outside of what took place yesterday in the PGA Championship. Mick Schaefer is our guest from KSHB 41, the sports director. Mick, thank goodness for Michael Block yesterday, because other than that, it would have been a weekend of the Royals getting swept, the NBA conference finals being gross, and ultimately the last couple 3 holes Koepka taking control and there being no drama at that point if it wasn't for the fun story of Michael Block.
You're right.
Oh, and KC, the Sporting KC getting whipped.
And the Current.
Yes,
losing
and the Current
2-0.
Now lost 4 in a row.
I anchored Saturday and Sunday, and the Monarchs were the only team that won on Saturday. I don't know what they did last night. They probably won because that's what they usually do. But Brandon Finnegan pitched on Saturday
so fun
for the Monarchs. So and they've got a couple local kids as well playing. And so other than that, the Royals just punchless offense, right? Yeah. And the Sporting punchless offense,
and
right?
defense.
And defense.
And overall feel of being in the game.
Yeah. And then kind of like the Current hasn't won since April. They're like on a 4-match losing streak.
Here's a new manager, and then it starts off great. Yeah. Wait a minute, and oh no.
Thank God for the Chiefs a lot of times around here. And really, do they need to take an offseason? Because
I don't think so.
It's a bad stretch. But I mean, you can attest to this. You can remember, 10, 15 years ago, this was like this, and the Chiefs were like this too. Actually, the Wizards / Sporting, they've always pretty much been competitive, right? But
the Current never won a game.
But
ever.
back then, they weren't on the radar.
Yeah.
They weren't.
They couldn't even tie.
They couldn't.
No ties, no wins, and nothing.
The Current has no past. But even back then, Sporting wasn't what it is now on the radar like it is now. Yeah. So it was like Saturday at 10, and you're not thinking about it at the time. I'm like, did we have any winners today at all? And like the 8 highlights I did, like, oh yeah, Monarchs.
There you
That's
go.
about it. Oh, because we were doing Mizzou softball as well, because they played Oklahoma. And then they lost to Cal as well. Both games on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
In there, which the Royals probably weren't coming out of the Oklahoma regional down there. Okay, they're like 54-1.
Unbelievable. Hey,
54-1.
You're the best team in America. Now add a transfer that was like one of the best hitters in America that didn't play for you. And here's one of the best pitchers in America that didn't play for you. Now go see if anybody will beat you next year.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
The same day, KU lost to Texas Tech in baseball. K-State lost to TCU in wild fashion. K-State TCU is a crazy good rivalry in like every sport now, includes baseball. They had a walk-off on Friday, K-State did, and then it was 4-3 with 2 outs in the 9th, and this K-State kid hits one to the wall. Center fielder for TCU jumps up, grabs it, brings it back in. That's how the game ended. And so they lost. Mizzou baseball lost to, I believe, Auburn that day. So literally we had 8 to 10 highlights, and the only ones that won were the Monarchs.
And LeBron and the Lakers lost. So it was a rough.
And then my kid's a Celtics fan, so
that's right. You know what? I was thinking about that last night or this morning when I was looking at different things for today, and I'm like, Mick's coming. I'm like, oh wait, his son is a Celtics fan. Oh, I bet.
I need a place to crash. If anyone's really tense around our house.
I bet it is pretty tense around there. Is he quitting school the way that they quit the game last night? Or
he said, I'm not going to school after this week.
Yeah. I'm going to quit on Wednesday or Thursday.
Thursday at noon.
Thursday is it Thursday at noon? Yeah. My son's quitting Wednesday at noon.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm out. I cannot do it. If there's no Western or Eastern Conference finals being played, then I refuse to go to school because I don't think they'll be playing on past Wednesday.
Either one going to go 5?
I guess if the Lakers win tonight, they'll be playing Wednesday night.
Yeah. It's funny. I had a buddy tell me like a month or 2 ago, he's like, the odds of like, you could bet on just, is the NBA champ going to come from the East or West? And the odds for the East were so good. He's like, there's nobody in the West. Just put a lot of money in the East. And I'm like, oh, I'd put a lot of money on the Nuggets right now.
Yeah, the Nuggets I would probably go with. That would be the best because they look like they're pretty good. It's like the ESPN has their football power ratings index, the FPI that they have released. The Chiefs are number 1, which is great. So that's good.
With the Chargers number 0 then, or they start with 1?
Chargers in at number 7, so 6 spots lower than you would think in May that they would be ranked. It went
Fool me 17 times. Just shame on you.
That's right. The ranking went Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Bengals, 49ers, Jets, Chargers. You just want to go down until you get to the Chargers.
Jets. I don't know. We'll see.
But the odds, according to FPI, of winning the Super Bowl, the Eagles are number 1 at 14%. Chiefs are 13%. And that's sort of like the East-West or where you put money on because, the Bills and Bengals and Chargers and Dolphins and Ravens and
whoever
Jets.
wins the AFC, it's going to be a war.
Yeah, but
NFC might be more of a skirmish.
But getting there, like the Chiefs have lower odds because it's tougher for them to even get to the Super Bowl than it would be for the Eagles. So the Eagles have better odds of winning the Super Bowl over the Chiefs, even though the Chiefs are
Makes
the
sense.
FPI's best team. Yeah, totally makes sense. Where, I don't know, I think it'd be the Nuggets either way. Nuggets might have an easier path. And they're also the better team as well. So to me, I looked at it with Golden State and L.A. and it's like, whoever wins that series is going to lose in 5 or 6 to the Nuggets anyway. And I think with the Heat and the Celtics, like whoever wins that one's going to lose in 6 to the Nuggets. If the Celtics somehow come back and win 4 games in a row, then they may get swept by the Nuggets. I'm not sure. But I think the Heat, they're playing awesome basketball, and that would be fun for 2 teams that are playing as connected as anybody in the NBA right now with the Nuggets and the Heat to see them match up. I just don't think the Heat have enough firepower against a team that has stars that are playing like stars. Where the Celtics have some stars, they ain't playing like it.
Yeah.
And the Nuggets have role players that are starting to turn it on. What Michael Porter Jr. 14, 10,
Been
and
fun
7.
watching him. I know what Brown hasn't had a great conference finals, but he's had a great rookie year. I think there's only. It's funny. He would join a very small class to win an NCAA title and then an NBA title in back-to-back seasons. It's only a handful of guys. I saw it the other day. I was shocked. I would have guessed there would be so much more.
Trivia question. I love that.
I'll look it up in the break.
Yeah, I love that trivia question.
Josh, selfishly not here. He would be on his computer right now.
Yeah, he
might have an answer for us.
Here, I'll speak for Josh. I'm on it.
On it.
And then he'd be going out of his way to go and figure that out. I'm just trying to rack my brain right now as to who won a championship and then the next year won an NBA championship.
Would Magic have done it? Did they win? It was 79 and 80, right? Didn't he win his first year? And if my memory of the show Primetime, Showtime,
I'll take your word for it. Or I'll ask St. Louis soccer fans because that's when they were really good. It was in the 80s as well.
Were they? Was it 80s?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. I know that people were talking, well, before the MLS. I mean, there's a lot of history before the MLS even happened.
Yeah, that shouldn't count. I mean, it wasn't even like a
cool.
We're close to like a mainstream league.
They created the MLS so they can have Major League Soccer.
It's like, you know what? I mean, Detroit was a powerhouse before the NFL. It'd be pro football in the late 1800s. Detroit was a powerhouse.
That's what I tweeted with somebody who was like, there's so much more history. He called me a child because,
I saw that.
Because I am.
You're kind of petty online, but I'm here for it.
Oh, totally petty. Totally petty on that.
I like you write how you talk. I just see you just kind of like getting up, shaking your head, like crinkling your nose. Oh, really? Really?
Oh,
well,
really?
how about this?
Hopefully your city can keep this type of football team around.
Right. I mean, they're just setting themselves up for that kind
which has really made a lot of St. Louis people happy. It was odd that they were very happy about my tweet. It was weird.
Yeah.
I thought they would be frustrated or upset. It sounded frustrated or upset, but I think if you read it, it would have been in a kinder, softer, gentler tone than what they wrote. But
I read it in a sassy Jason tone. But I read it in.
I was just reading the replies in a softer, gentler, like, oh, that's nice of you to say in an ironic way. But there's so much history before. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, Princeton and
that's right,
Yale
yeah.
have a combined 55 college football national championships. I don't think the Ivy League is the premier football conference, but whatever. Cool, man.
Yeah, no, that was good. I looked it up. The Royals' all-time record against the Cardinals is like 50-something and 70-something, but 4 very big wins.
They do have 4 very big wins.
The 4 biggest wins
and
were via the Royals.
They're 4-3 in the biggest 7 games
In
ever
the
played.
7 games that matter.
And they also have won it most recently.
They have.
The most recent one to win it between the two. I mean, I don't know.
Good call.
Does that count or does it not count? I'm not really sure.
Well, I would take the Cardinals baseball history.
Yes,
I would,
of
right?
course.
Oh, you win that one. You can take that one.
All right.
I'll concede that one.
Yes, it was close, but I do think the Cardinals have better current and also past history.
Yeah.
I will give you the nod there.
Well, and
or it's a wide margin. I don't know.
I didn't know that the Chiefs had only lost 1 game in their history to the St. Louis Cardinals / St. Louis Rams.
Really?
Combined.
Even over that was 27 years the Cardinals were there. That
they were, but not a lot of NFC,
Yeah.
AFC games, right?
True. Yeah.
And so they were 3-1-1 against the Arizona Cardinals.
That's it.
And then 6-0 against the Rams. Now, that does not preseason, right? They played forever, right? A lot of years. That is not. It's regular season. Never lost the Rams.
Wow,
which is kind of hard to believe.
That is crazy. So they didn't play.
It
the
makes me
greatest
wonder if
they
I
didn't play
got
the
the
greatest
stats
show
right.
on turf.
Probably
Yeah.
not. Or
I
they
don't
cut
know.
them on a bad Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to take your word for it, even if they're like, well, actually, they were 2-8
Yes.
against the Rams. I like 6-0 better. I like
I
that
said
better.
it on the news last night, so it's now a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? If I heard it and then I read it, and if I didn't see it, it doesn't matter because I got 2 out of 3.
Mm-hmm.
2 out of 3. But in all seriousness, with that sort of aspect, that we can argue about capitals this and capital that, but
I don't think either one's a capital.
well, I mean that's fine. But even if you're ranking them, like one would be up ahead of the other, and I think that
Way
was pretty
ahead.
obvious.
Yes.
But it was embarrassing. It was an embarrassing result and performance from Sporting
Yeah.
on Saturday, and it sucks because like it was as anticipated of a match that I've had in a long time for a regular season Sporting KC match. Playoffs always excited about that, but and some U.S. Open Cup matches, but that one was just like I can't wait. Got home after Briscoe's wedding, made sure I didn't see the score.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and watched it, and 3-0 is like, well, I think I'll go
Briscoe's
to bed
wedding
now.
was better, yeah.
I think I'll go to bed now. I think I'll go ahead and fall asleep. It's 3-0. Almost at it took a lot to get through halftime, really, because we had been at Briscoe's wedding.
It
and
was
then
a
I'm
2-0 lead already.
I'm like, it's already 2-0, and it's like they just don't look like they have it. And that felt like, and credit to St. Louis, by the way, because that atmosphere looked unbelievable.
Yeah.
Looked unreal. And that was sort of a buildup of years and years and years. And this year, obviously, and building up to the whole KC St. Louis thing. And in that night, it was all about the home team that was trying to exorcise a lot of the frustrations.
Was there
and get
2
them
or
out.
3 KC kids on that St. Louis team, I think.
Were there?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
and then we
good
had
for
Daniel.
them.
We had you and Daniel last night. Daniel
Yeah.
Sperry on the show on Sunday Sound Off, and it was interesting. He talked about. He said the atmosphere was amazing. It looked great. I mean, so many scarves, so many flags, so much smoke.
Yeah.
It was
Lights.
big time.
It's a light
big
show.
Time, yeah.
It's a heartbeat show
Soccer
type thing.
atmosphere. But then you had the I lost my train of thought.
Oh, you're fine. We were just talking about how fun the atmosphere was, and then being down 2-0 and then 3-0.
Oh, but he said that, the best way, the strategy to play St. Louis is to let them possess the ball.
Yeah.
And Sporting didn't do that. And you saw so many counters. But Gotti Kinda got tackled. Ball goes moments later in the goal, right? And then the first goal, there was a foul right before that they just missed that resulted in the PK. It was bad officiating there.
They missed the foul, but then they get that one. Then they get that one that was
Yeah.
kind of questionable because
Yeah,
I don't think
exactly.
he went through him
No.
with that. And there should have been a yellow card earlier in the match. That was a diving tackle and took out the legs, but that was not a yellow. But I think the 4-0 loss is all the result of bad officiating.
Everything.
It was
Totally.
all the refs. It was all the refs. That's what that was.
I was trying to explain it to how would you correlate 4-0 to a football score?
Because they actually had some shots on goal.
You have to give them some points.
I feel like it's like a 38-7 or something like that.
I said 49-3.
49-3. I almost said 38-3, but then I gave them a touchdown for some reason. But yeah, I could see that one too.
I mean,
but
4 goals is a lot, right? And I feel like it's at least 40 points, maybe 50.
So you're saying like every goal in soccer is like 10 points?
Close to it. Yes. Okay. It's like a touchdown and a field goal.
Touchdown and field every single time. So you got a touchdown and you got a kick part of it. So you got 2 kicks.
Yeah, but then like each goal, maybe the first one's 10 points, the next one's 12, the next one's 15, fourth goal's 20. Like if you're giving up, I'm giving up 20 points here if they're getting a 4th goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
because you're not going to overcoming that. Yeah, you're not overcoming that at all. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, it was interesting hearing Daniel talk about the sort of strategy, and they talked about it on the broadcast too. That St. Louis had struggled because teams were like, no, you take the ball.
Yeah,
we're going to counter off you. You know, we're not gonna let you counter off us. Yeah. We're going to let you have the ball, and it had sort of worked against us.
Was Nate a homer?
No, I mean honestly, it was. I didn't have.
Is it impossible to be?
I had the closed captioning on because I was watching it upstairs in bed,
see, yeah.
so I didn't. So I was like, just like, it's fine.
I listened to a lot of it. He was not a homer.
Really?
No, he was.
And they score, son of a. I mean, hey, that's a goal. Very exciting for the St. Louis fans that are just now realizing what MLS is all about. Welcome. I bet no matter what, if he was unbiased or anything down the middle, I bet there's a clip or two they'd probably cut and say, look at this Nathan Bukaty, this Tony
Nathan.
Told you.
Anthony Miola.
It's Nathan Bukaty and Anthony Miola. I told you, they're suspect. These guys are real suspect. I have not heard one way or another if Chris Jones is at the voluntary minicamp today.
I don't know how we find out. I mean,
yeah, I know because nobody's allowed there.
Herbie retired.
Yeah. I need somebody to go in like binoculars in a tree or something and just look down.
That would be a death sentence.
Yeah. Not by a reporter, just like even if it's a random fan.
They check out there in those trees.
They would also be a death sentence for them as well.
Yes.
It would be a death sentence for you ever getting credentialed if it was a media member that did that. But it'd be, I mean, we'll find out Wednesday at 1 after the 3 days are completely over of whether or not Chris Jones actually showed up at voluntary minicamp, which is fine. I mean, shows up, does it?
It's fine. We talked about it last night. I mean, I would want, if it was me, I would think it's a work thing. I would show up. And ultimately, if I had my druthers, I'd show up and be there and all that stuff. But I get it when you're him, right? Yeah. And he's done it before. The biggest factor is you could have told me like he didn't show up last year. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Or you could have been like, he showed up last year. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I don't know. I won't remember whatever happens. I will not remember it in September. Probably not even in August or July.
I had to go back and look because that was the summer. It was May of 2019 of the voluntary, and I wasn't here at that time. I was talking about basketball recruiting probably. So I wasn't privy to all of the day-to-day stuff, keeping track as much as possible, but not. So I had to go back and look, and it was like, yeah, even in 2019 when he was wanting a contract extension, when it was the 4th year of his rookie deal, he didn't show up to the voluntary stuff. Oh, okay. Well, it turns out he still knows how to play football, so I think he's fine if he doesn't show up. But it would be cool if we could find out one way or another just to put it to rest.
Yeah.
Instead of asking Andy about it. We're going to talk about people that are here. It's okay, Andy. Well, I guess 2020 he would say we're only talking about people that are on the team because he hadn't signed his franchise tag, so he wasn't on the Chiefs.
I'll take your word for it.
Because him showing up or not showing up didn't matter then because he hadn't signed the franchise tag. So it's like, not even a conversation about whether he's going to be there or not. So we'll see. We'll take a time out. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. We'll get Learn Funniest Best, what happened from the weekend, what we learned, what the funniest, what the best was from the weekend, and also talk about a number of other things here that may have happened over the weekend or Friday as we were signing off with the show on Friday. The letters and tweets back and forth. Frank White has now weighed in with his statement that he released over the weekend as part of the whole intra-state counties between Jackson and Clay County. So we can talk about that as well. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Speaking of that, Adam Schefter tweeting out earlier today, and David Purdom from ESPN has the report that in the wake of 5 players being suspended in April for the NFL's gambling policy, the NFL is investigating a second wave of potential violations of its gambling policy, multiple sources told ESPN. So that's something interesting. The first wave of 5 players that were suspended a month ago, and now they are investigating. They're not suspending or announcing. They are investigating the quote-unquote second wave of potential violations on this gambling policy that the NFL has. So there you go. Speaking of something we weren't talking about at all. Let's get into Learn Funniest Best, what we learned from the weekend. Funniest from the weekend, best from the weekend. It is presented by Pyramid Roofing. For a free estimate, call 816-966-1101 or pyramidroofingkc.com. Roof repair, new roof, gutters, whatever you're looking for, gutter guard. It is Pyramid Roofing, 816-966-1101 or pyramidroofingkc.com. What I learned from the weekend is, sometimes you can see those videos online of people in an ATV or a dirt bike or motorcycles, and they're doing tricks on the highway. Yep. And the ATV is doing a wheelie, right? And they've got their knees on the seat, and they're doing wheelies and stuff, and doing wheelies in the dirt bikes and the motorcycles and stuff. How that looks kind of cool and everything. What I learned is being in the middle of that didn't feel as cool. We were driving to Briscoe's wedding on Saturday. We had dropped the kids off up north, and then we were driving down I-35 south, so right around downtown to then past Southwest Boulevard, and we were on 670 to I-35, and there were, I'm not joking, over 100. It just kept. It was like a parade. Motorcycles, ATVs. They're doing all these tricks. They've got these wheelies going on. They're flying between cars. They've got the ATVs. And I'm like, it felt incredibly dangerous, while also I was saying to my wife, hey, videotape. No, we're good. Oh, look at that guy over there. Look at that. And then zoom right in front of us. And then somebody else doing a wheelie by us. And she was not having fun at all, because in her mind, in my mind too, I'm like, we're driving down the highway. It takes one person to do a wheelie too far, and then now there's wrecks and all this other stuff. But I'm telling you, it was hundreds and hundreds. We look back in the rearview mirror, and I'm like, look how far back it is. I have no idea what was going on, if it was some big planned, but they got off on Southwest Boulevard, and then they did a loop back to get back on 35 North. So I don't know what they were doing, but I know seeing the videos and stuff, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. When it's sort of weaving in and out of traffic, it wasn't as cool at that point. No. But I did want her to get video of it, so we could show, so I could maybe describe it to those that are visual learners to see just how I couldn't. I thought there were 5 or 6 that passed us, right? Because we were at the.
Did you get some license plate numbers and
no,
turn in the cops?
No, we weren't doing that. And so I'm like, because at one point I'm like, well, I got to get over. I can't get left. I didn't need to get left, but I need to get right so I can get on 35 South. I'm like, well, I eventually got to get over, but there were 3 lanes of just these bikers. And so I'm like, well, eventually it'll be looking in the river. Nope. Looking in the side mirror. I'm like, that thing is way back there. I'm going to have to slow down and sort of let them pass so I can then, get over a lane. We laugh about it. Yeah. But yeah, some of it was like, oh, that is pretty kick-ass, what they're doing right now. Other parts was like, that is a really high wheelie. His back is parallel to the ground. He wasn't just doing a wheelie. His back is parallel to the ground while he's doing a wheelie. How in the world is gravity? How is he not falling backwards? His bike is directly vertical. His wheels are in line vertically. His back is parallel to the... How is that possible? Get a video of this, honey. Nope. And she said, well, I don't want to encourage him.
Yeah.
Which also might have been my funniest, too.
It's Darwinism right there.
That's right. What'd you learn this weekend, Mick?
I learned that you can do some sort of a time release on the food at a wedding, and there's certain times where you can eat certain foods, and I did find it ironic that Josh, in his scare with diabetes, had a gigantic cinnamon roll tower at his wedding, and it was great. I feel like that was like a little Josh inside joke there.
It was really good.
And so when I got there, I was there late because I had to work. Some speeches and everything, so I'm sitting down. That's all I could stare at was the cinnamon roll thing.
We walked right past it when you
Yeah,
walked in.
and then I found out Sterling had taken one, and he got in big time trouble for it.
Yeah,
big
Sterling
time.
Holmes. He almost got kicked
because
out
it
of
was
the wedding.
yeah, because it was before the taco truck, and then there's a pretzel stand. Great food, right? And there's all the other snacks, but
really cool.
I don't know if they ever even opened up the cinnamon roll thing because I had to leave, get back, and so I got video of it, and then I sent it to you and Josh of me swiping a cinnamon roll and just running out of the venue.
It was a great video, by the way. It was awesome. First person where it just shows him getting his hand enters the view of the camera, grabs the cinnamon roll, and then the next thing you see is just a direct pan over to the door and him jetting out the door to get out of there because it wasn't open and Sterling did get in trouble.
Like they were play mad, but kind of half maybe real
Yeah,
mad
it's like-
about it. Yeah.
Well, because the balance was off then because there was like a huge tower in the middle.
I tried to even it out.
And then next to it was like, 4 cinnamon
Other
rolls
platters,
stacked.
yeah.
And then there was one right in the middle, sort of like a topper. And he took the right side topper. So it was all off balance.
Like
now.
in Jenga, the thing might have fallen over.
That's
He
right.
takes out that little block
Yeah.
in the middle to the right.
Luckily, the possums were there to protect it, or the opossums were there to protect it. And then what you did was you just balanced it out.
I did.
You took the topper from the other side.
Really good at Jenga.
And there he goes, perfect. I will say, though, for them to say that is off limits for like 3 hours, it was the first thing you saw when you walked in the door.
First thing you see.
You
That's
walked
it.
in the door, it's a huge cinnamon roll tower that they're like, but I need you to pass that and come in here to everything. We got snacks, we got soft pretzels, we got cotton candy, got a lot of different things that you can enjoy here. Just not those cinnamon rolls. Sterling Holmes. I bet if it was Sterling Mahomes, they'd let it have cinnamon roll. Oh, what'd you learn, Drake?
Well, I learned some more about something I already knew a little bit about. I knew that Antonio Brown had bought a National Arena League team, the Albany Empire, and then there was some it was a little kerfuffle because a lot of the players were saying they hadn't been paid in a while.
What?
No.
So I knew about that, but then this weekend I learned that Antonio Brown now claims he does not own the team, and that he can't because he's a foreign national. And then he came out and said that he plans to play for the team next week. So these are all things.
Wait, what does a foreign national mean in this sense?
They were born outside of the United States and they're not a citizen.
So
he can't own a team?
He can't own the team?
In
Wait.
his mind,
Antonio Brown's not a citizen.
That's
of Canada, of Albany, right?
Albany's in New York.
New York.
I was thinking like Alberta. Oh my God, you said Albany, and I thought Alberta. That was the first thing I thought of. I'm like, okay, so a Canadian team. He's buying a Canadian team. Okay, interesting. I don't know why I just thought Alberta.
That's a capital. That's an actual capital.
No, it's not. Not if you ask some of the other cities throughout Canada.
It's the capital of minor league football.
Yes, I thought it was Saskatchewan. They used to have 2 teams there. Or no, there was two Rough Riders. That's right, 2 Rough Riders. One of them was Saskatchewan. So he owns a team in Albany and is now going to play
Maybe
for...
not.
Okay.
Maybe, but maybe not.
But also he wasn't born in the United States?
But you can still be a citizen if you were.
I know, but he was. But
I bet he was.
He's an interesting guy, and I learn things about him sometimes.
Yeah, that whole thing was once my head heard Alberta, the whole thing was changed. The entire story changes at that point.
Well, it makes more sense if it's in Canada.
Right, it would make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, he was born in Miami.
A foreign country.
Oh my gosh.
He played for Central Michigan. Just seeing like where a part of this is he.
I'm willing to bet Antonio Brown's a citizen, and why that matters, I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you guys learned about it too, because I find it interesting.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So it says media outlets have disputed Brown's self-reference as a foreign national since both of his parents are U.S. citizens and he was born and raised in Miami. The letter cited to back up Brown's claim that he is a United States national but not a citizen. This section of the United States Code applies only to people who were born in American Samoa or the Swains Island, or to people in a few other circumstances not applicable to Antonio Brown. Some of the language in the letter may suggest an attempt by Brown to portray himself as a sovereign citizen.
So he's just trying to get out of, making payroll, huh?
Writing here that this is a clumsy effort to create a shell entity that owns the team for Antonio Brown. You think Antonio Brown's smart enough to create this shell company through himself as a sovereign citizen or a foreign national?
He saw an episode of Ozark.
In owning the Albany Empire.
That's pretty good.
Unbelievable. All right, funniest for you, Mick, from the weekend.
All right, so the funniest for me from the weekend was, we had the Belmont Stakes, right, on NBC.
It was Preakness.
Sorry, the Preakness.
Mm-hmm. You got the Belmont coming up in a couple of weeks. But don't worry, the Derby winner did not win the Preakness, so nobody would care.
Of all people to make that stumble in front of it.
Yeah, that's the one that happens in Alberta.
Yeah, that's it. So Preakness, sorry, at Pimlico, Baltimore. I watched it. I know it.
By the way, real quick, do you know where the Belmont Park is at?
Elmont,
New York.
New York.
They run the Belmont in
At
Elmont, New
yes.
York. Not in Albany or Alberta. Please continue.
No problem.
Preakness.
Preakness. And so you may or may not remember Kentucky Derby a couple weeks back. Wes Peary broke in during the middle of Patrick Mahomes doing the Riders Up. And he's had a great sense of humor about it. And Wes is a great guy. Afterward, on our 6:30 show on Saturday, at the end, he was like, the weather was great. It's going to be great. And I ended with the Preakness highlights. He's like, you know what? And I didn't break in. I didn't break in and cover the race. And he's like, I was wanting to just break in and tell y'all how good the weather is.
So
but
nice.
I resisted. So we had a good week. It's probably the hardest I laughed all weekend long. He made fun of himself there. It was pretty funny.
Does the Preakness do a Riders Up or anything like that?
I think they do. They were talking about, they interviewed somebody who did it like the year before. Oh, man, somebody famous there. But yeah, I think they do.
I was driving around and everything because the wedding.
I don't think
and
Kansas City
Josh's.
would have cared as much had he broke into the Riders Up of the Preakness.
Unless it was Kelsey. Then it would have been.
Yep, right, but it wasn't. So, but if it's anybody else, they wouldn't even noticed.
Yeah, I wonder who it was. Don't care. What was the funniest, Drake, for you?
For me, I just love how things seem to live forever on the internet, and you can't get away with anything anymore. Micah Parsons from the Cowboys was at one of the conference finals in a Celtics jersey. Fine. But then people started posting pictures online of him at other games in other jerseys, and they're calling him a bandwagon fan. And it's just funny how you can't even, I'm going to get a souvenir jersey at the game and wear it. And,
You're probably a guest of that team, right? So like, I'll support him, whatever.
Yeah. People will give you a hard time for anything anymore.
That's crazy.
He's the new Drake.
Yeah,
Not
Drake.
you, but the
right.
The Drake the rapper. Yes, that oddly enough has never worn a Drake jersey. He hasn't
Sure
been
about
a Drake fan.
He visited Drake University once.
Did he really?
When he was playing in Des Moines. It was a big deal because they tried to get him to come to campus. And
I heard they named the school after him for like a day, and it just took.
And it was an honorary name.
There were several parties on Greek Street that tried to get him to show up, and he did not. But then he tweeted out a picture of him by the university sign right on the corner of 25th and University there at like 2 a.m. And so he did show up on campus, but just for a moment.
My funniest from the weekend is finding out that Antonio Brown thinks he's a foreign national. He writes here, I, Brown, Antonio Tavares, a foreign national but not a citizen of the United States at birth, am writing you in regarding the recent reports that have been circulating in the media regarding my supposed ownership of the Albany Empire team. I want to make it very clear I am not the owner of this team, and any claims to the contrary are completely false. Signed, Antonio Tavares Brown, foreign national.
How's it confusing as to who owns a sports franchise? I don't think I've ever seen that before. Where like, no, I don't.
That is amazing.
Yeah, you do.
My actual funniest from the weekend was the cinnamon roll controversy at Josh and Renee's wedding. That was my funniest from the weekend, of Sterling and everybody just clowning Sterling and him somewhat feeling bad. Like, I didn't know, like, he feels like he was a fish out of water at that point because everybody was pointing at him and talking about him. Like, there's the guy that stole the cinnamon roll.
He loved it. He loved the
it's over
attention.
there. Hey, look, this guy that stole the cinnamon roll. See that guy who took his shirt off on the dance floor? He's the one that stole the cinnamon roll earlier today.
Did he really take his shirt off?
He probably did. Who knows? It's Sterling. I'm not really sure. He was rocking out to Avril Lavigne. He was like, guys, get out of here. Avril Lavigne's rocking right now. I'm like, yeah, this is our cue to leave. But
he told me at one point,
genre.
He was like, he turned to me, he's like, I feel like I'm like you just in the past. I'm like, oh, really? He's like, all I do is I read books, and I don't really go out. I'm like, well, it's nothing. It's nothing like me. I don't know why. When are you going to get to anything I've ever done? I've never read books or stayed in.
It's like I overheard a conversation he was having. Like he was talking to somebody at the wedding, and they were like, "Oh, this is Sterling." He's like, "Hi, Sterling Holmes." He's like, "Yeah, I don't know if you're interested, but I read 40 books last year.
Yeah,
and I'm already on book number
19 this year. Yeah,
this year. I don't see. Even you knew that, and you weren't even in conversation.
It was maybe the same conversation. Maybe it was a separate one. Maybe that's just his icebreaker.
You were not there yet. I know you weren't there yet when he had talked about that. So eventually, you had showed up, and there were more. I'm on book number 19 for this year already. So
hey, that's
could be an icebreaker.
That's how to get girls,
I guess. He forgot to tell his girlfriend that the wedding was this weekend.
Conveniently.
His plus one was Dylan, because his girlfriend was like, "I'm working." He's like, "Oh, darn it, I guess you are." Guess I'm going to have to go solo or take Dylan with me.
Dylan was cool, just not being invited.
So Dylan wasn't invited. I guess I'll go. Plus one. He had to leave early. He was running that sporting match. It was going to be a great one.
All those books and none on relationship advice.
That's right. Philip Cup. What's the love language? Telling you late that I've got a wedding to go to that I would love for you to go, but you're working. All right, the best from the weekend. Drake, what was your best?
Honestly, it was Briscoe's wedding. It was so personalized and great. I got married in 95 when I was like 22 years old, and I didn't know. I thought a wedding was like a cookie cutter thing. You just went to the store and you got one, and that's what it was.
I
got a wedding.
Yeah.
Aisle 4.
I was real excited at the time that mine was 13 minutes start to finish. We wanted to get in and out of there. It would have been 9 minutes if we had cut the song, but we didn't know you could cut the song. We thought that was what
you
it
have
was.
To.
So
it's in the Bible. You had to do that.
Yeah. So it was a great wedding. It was very personalized and heartfelt, and everybody involved seemed to be really having a great time. And she really seems to like him.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
Well, it's like they have either been together for 50 years. Or they dress up in costumes a lot more than just Halloween. Because the rolling video of pictures, every other picture, they're in some sort of Halloween costume.
Apparently, she is quite the party host. So they have like 6 themed parties,
murder mystery.
Yeah, like every year. So they are in costume a lot, in character. They also, I guess, performed in high school and stuff. So they've got that sort of background, and they seem to like each other, which is good. That's
Josh performed in homeschool.
That's right. He did.
One-man play.
You saw the home. Oh, you didn't see the home video.
No.
There was a whole home video thing on the projector screen that went on of their lives, sort of home video growing up. But the two, you didn't see that.
No.
Yeah.
Did you even video your wedding? We didn't even video ours. I was after you. I was 2000, but we took pictures before and after, just regular pictures, but no intimate black and white photos, right? Just catching us in the moment or anything like that.
No,
didn't even know that was an option.
We had a videographer, one camera sitting on a tripod at the back of the back of the church. That was the whole thing.
That's actually, we did have that up in the balcony. That no one's ever seen the tape of. Again, it was VHS tape.
I'm sure it's somewhere. And we thought we were really, really innovative because we had disposable cameras on the tables at the
reception.
At the reception.
That
was
a great idea.
That was really high end in 95.
Look at that. Everybody was like, "This is a really cool touch to this wedding. The Justice wedding is one of the best ever." They had the disposable. We should do that at our wedding. That's great. Right. Oh, I wish we'd have thought about that at our wedding. My best is piggybacking off of Drake and the wedding overall, but it was a lot of the other things that happened that could have also been in the funniest. For instance, Curtis Seabolt announced the wedding party at the reception. So and now,
nice.
So he had the big boy voice of Curtis Seabolt. So he did that, and he goes and hands the microphone to the DJ, and Curtis is then going to sit down with everybody else. But as he hands the microphone to the DJ is like, "All right, so the wedding." Josh and Renee went up on stage, and he's like, "All right, so it is now time for the groom, the mother-son dance." Or no, it was their first. Josh and Renee, their first dance is Joshua and Renee Briscoe. And he starts the music, and Curtis was trying to walk, and he couldn't, so he just stood there awkwardly next to the DJ. "All right, now we bring up Josh's mother, Michelle. It's time for the groom mother." So then Curtis is just standing there.
Get out?
No. And then it was the father-daughter dance, and he's sort of stuck there. And then it goes to the toasts that are happening with the parents, and he's stuck there. And then in the middle of all that, so they have Curtis introduce everything, but then they have the DJ announce all that stuff. He had announced somebody, maybe the Renee's mom that was getting ready to give a toast, and it was quiet, and Nate Taylor goes, I mean, they have Curtis that could do this.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, Nate, like, we get it. He's like, again, Curtis is right there to be able to do that. That was one of my best, and also you meeting Briscoe's mother.
Don't take my best.
And sorry, I'm not. Then there we
Don't
go. I'm going to leave it for you. What was your best from the weekend?
The best was okay. So we were kind of standing in a circle with all you radio dorks. Talking about sports, talking about work. You actually had the game on your phone. I'm like, oh, give me a break. Oh, my God. It was the Western Conference Finals.
It was game 3.
Yeah, it's huge. I'm like, so I break off. I'm like, this is lame. I told you I'm going to go flirt with Caitlin. I'm going to go talk to your wife. That's right. It's as I'm walking to go, because I met her a couple times, and she's great. And we both just kind of bag on you, and it's a good little bonding thing.
Cool.
And as I was making my way over there, I get intercepted by Josh Briscoe's mom, Michelle.
Yep.
And so I met her for the first time, roughly, 8 to 10 years after starting the whole bit of like, bye, Michelle. But on ending the show, bye, Mom. And so, yeah, it was great. We hugged, and she's a lot like Josh, just kind of
very
life
much
that fills up the room, life of the party. And she said something like to her husband, who I had met before, well, here's your competition. And he goes, good luck with her. And walks away. It's so funny.
I got video of the whole thing.
You did, yeah.
With his dad saying good luck with her, and you guys meeting, and then in the background, while you and Josh's mom were talking, then Lebo comes over for a hug as well. So
I call her Stifler's mom.
He was trying. Well, but in the background, you've got Rudy talking to Josh's dad.
Yeah.
So I'd send the video to Josh. I'm like, Rudy's got a little cover fire going for Mick Schaefer right now, just so you know. Josh tweeted or texted me on Sunday morning, said, you filmed a horror video at my wedding. I can't get this out of my mind now.
Yeah, at one
From
point.
my dad saying good luck with her, to Rudy offering cover fire, to Todd getting in there and hugging, to my mom's constant, just huge smile plastered on her face. It is a horror video.
We got his attention from across the room. We were all just like arm in arm, like point, hey.
Yes, I know. I videoed
great.
the whole thing. I had to get the first meeting there. We'll take a time out. We'll come back. Wrap up the show coming up next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Mick Schaefer, and Drake. We had up until 2 o'clock. Michael Block, the story of the PGA Championship, is going to be in action this weekend. He got the executive for the Colonial. Did he get one for the weekend after
RBC Canadian Open, June 11th, he got the invite to.
Is that in Albany?
That's in Albany, Canada. It's
if you're just tuning in, that makes no sense to you.
The province of New York in Canada.
Yeah. So he got the executive or exemption for that as well?
Yes, and I bet he'll be playing. He will not be going back to his regular job for a while.
Well, I mean, I wonder if he made $300,000 a year because he just made $300,000 this past weekend.
I doubt it.
And then whatever, I mean, make the cut at the Colonial. You're going to be making some more
money.
The
funny thing was, they were like, you go the Charles Schwab Colonial. Right? So yeah, they're on the phone. It's like, you might have to tell your boss you won't be coming back to work next week. He's like, well, my boss is right here. He's got tequila in his hand, so I think it's going to be okay.
And the boss was like, yeah, you're good. You're okay. His wife off camera, just barely to the left, is sobbing.
Well, I didn't know how that worked. Like if that was me, I would be like, okay, well, I got to check with my wife. But it was, I guess it's in that world, it's a done deal. Yeah, you go play.
I thought it was a joke when he said, I got to check with my boss. I thought he was talking about his wife.
Yeah.
I got to check with my boss. Then he's like, no, he's right behind me. I'm like, oh, his actual boss is there with him. Was that his caddy?
He needs to. I know he played out of his mind, but obviously keep playing well. But it'd be cool to see if he made another cut.
Yeah, it would. I mean, odds are that he's going to shoot like 75. Excuse me, 85 on Thursday.
Oh, he's not going to be that bad.
And you're just like, oh, well, that was a cool story. I hope he does well. I hope it continues. It's a really awesome story. And we were trying to think of other sports. You had asked Daniel last night. We were trying to think of other sports. And people have talked about Matt Moore with the Chiefs, coaching high school football.
That's a good one, yeah.
But he had played in the NFL before. Yeah. Like, this guy's played like 40 tournaments.
Kind of like a Jeremy Lin, maybe, up there.
A little bit, yeah.
The Knicks. Yeah.
Kurt Warner, but,
bagging groceries.
Yeah. Michael Block. I want to call him Barry Block so bad. Petro, next.
Greenlight Dispensary has been voted best dispensary in